He's a suitcase and a trunk, and the only time he's satisfied is when he is all drunk. Oh, mother, tell your children not to do what I have done. Spend your lives in sin and misery in the house of the rising sun. I got one foot on the platform, the other foot on the train. I'm going back to New Orleans to wear that ball and chain.
Doesn't it? Lots of young people hitchhike. Seems like a good way to get from one place to another. But sometimes there are dangers involved that never meet the eye. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly. One never knows when the homosexual is about. Let's take the case of Jimmy Barnes. Jimmy played baseball all afternoon and he didn't feel like walking home, so he decided to thumb a ride. He'd done it 100 times before, and he didn't think anything was unusual when the driver struck up a friendly conversation. In fact, he seemed like a real nice guy. What Jimmy didn't know was that Ralph was sick, a sickness that was not visible like smallpox, but no less dangerous and contagious, a sickness of the mind. You see, Ralph was a homosexual, a person who demands an intimate relationship with members of their own sex. So no matter where you meet a stranger, be careful if they are too friendly, if they try to win your confidence too quickly, and if they become overly personal. One never knows when the homosexual is about. He may appear normal.
The Gay Pride Parade kicked off with an American flag, but some of what followed was not exactly hot dogs and apple pie. Lots of men looked jarringly like women, and some women could have arm wrestled with the heftiest of men. At the Mardi Gras-style event, there was some of the outlandish garb that tends to irritate some of the gays as well as some of the straights.
If you're gay, it doesn't mean that you are this outlandish or whatever. Probably, if the truth were known, 1/3 of the gays are not known in the city of Houston simply because they live a very quiet and private life.
This 5th annual Gay Pride Parade is to promote better communication between the homosexual and heterosexual communities in the city. It was well organized and well attended, except the crowd seemed older than one might expect. Conspicuously absent here, the numerous faces of small children usually seen at parades. Parents still tend to view anything gay as adult entertainment. Not so with Judy Mahana. She brought her 2 young ones. They were doing fine. It was Judy who had some regrets.
Well, I feel like I understand now why divorced women have such a hard time finding husbands.
Indeed, most of the parade participants by far were gay. It was hard to tell who wasn't. But in the midst of all the laughter and fun here was a serious theme, that gays are a part of 1982, not apart from it. Jamie O'Rourke, Eyewitness News.
I saw Joe Bob the other day. I was trying to tune in the damn baseball game, and then the game went off, and CBS came on with the movie. They had two magnificent, handsome guys and a stupid old fellow in it. They were glorifying homosexuality.
Is that a panel show?
No, it's a movie.
No, that's a regular show. It's on every week, and usually it's just set in the guy's home, and it's usually just that guy who's a hard hat.
That's right. He's a hard
And he always just looks like a slob.
Looks like Jackie Gleason.
And then he has this hippie son-in-law.
Yeah.
And usually, the general trend of it is to downgrade him and upgrade everything. Make the square hard hat out to be bad.
What is it called?
I've never seen
Arch is the guy's name.
it. That's real family entertainment, isn't it?
The point that I make is that, goddamn, I do not think that you glorify on public television homosexuality. You ever see what happened? You know what happened to the Greeks? Homosexuality destroyed them. Sure, Aristotle was a homo. We all know that. But it was Socrates.
He never had the influence of television.
The last 6 Roman emperors were fags. You see, homosexuality, immorality generally, these are the enemies of strong societies. That's why the communists and the left-wingers are pushing each other. They're trying to destroy us.
Oh, you hippies! What's up? Welcome. How's everybody tonight? Happy Pride Month! Happy Pride Month! See No Evil, James Campisi, Corey Floxra, La Seance Synthesizer Spaghetti Yeti. Happy Pride Month! We're here to glorify the achievements of the LGBT community. That's what we're supposed to do, right? That's what we're supposed to do. So we're here tonight. I thought it would be a good idea to glorify the achievements of the LGBT community in the JFK assassination. So that's what we're gonna do tonight. We're gonna get gay with it. But first, this show, of course, is brought to you free. It's a complete public service to you. However, donations are encouraged and accepted. And you can drop those at buymeacoffee.com/mooseheaven. But we're not here to grift tonight. We're here to talk about the Clay Shaw trial. That's right. If you've seen the movie JFK, the Oliver Stone one, a lot of this might be familiar to you. It might be familiar territory. Some of these names might ring a bell if you've been paying attention to my JFK streams. A lot of this should kind of ring true, ring accurate. So the Clay Shaw trial, the only person who was ever taken to trial for the JFK assassination. But there's more. Was the assassination of JFK a homosexual thrill killing? What? There's only one way we're gonna find out. There's only one way we're gonna find out. We're gonna have to get deep into the underbelly.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Especially in the homosexual underworld. Hello, True Wolf. We're about to get into the dark underbelly of the homosexual underworld. Was the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy a homosexual thrill killing, as as District Attorney Jim Garrison accused. That's a mighty tall speculating. Mighty tall. Got a lot to unpack, a lot to unpack, a lot to unpack tonight.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Especially in the homosexual underworld. Like I said, if you've seen the movie JFK, a lot of this should be familiar territory. You might know, you might say Spirit. I seen that Oliver Stone movie. I know all about the homosexual thrill-killing aspect of JFK. I know all about it. I seen that movie. But my dear friends, tonight we're gonna get into some deep dark shit that Oliver Stone wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole in his movie. No. No way. No way. No way, no how. You know we ain't gonna give you just the mainstream story. We're gonna dig deeper. We're gonna dig deeper.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Especially in the homosexual underworld. We gotta find out. Gotta find out what happened to JFK, because it's not like anything bad ever happened to a Kennedy.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys!
All right, enough of this tomfoolery. Let me set the stage for y'all. If I break into Southern lawyer talk, forgive me. It's hard not to with this. Hard not to with this story, but let me set the stage for y'all. I feel it's important that before we dive into the nitty-gritty of the homosexual underworld and the assassination of John Fitzgerald Kennedy, that I think you must understand some of the background of most of the city in which we are going to spend the majority of our time tonight. That being the city of New Orleans. New Orleans. So we're gonna learn a little bit about New Orleans and set the stage for the killing of JFK and the homosexual underworld. Now, one thing you gotta understand about New Orleans is it's a gumbo of people. You got a whole lot of immigrants from a whole lot of places, a whole lot of cultures, mixing together, stewing together, cooking up a gumbo made of humans. You got French people, you got English people, you got Irish immigrants, you got Italian immigrants, you got Spanish and Portuguese immigrants. There's Germans and Cajuns and Creoles and Cubans. You got Haitians and Africans, and they're practicing Catholicism and voodoo. Pack that all together into one bowl, and what do you get? You get crab people. Crab people. I'll let you examine this photo and all of its degeneracy. Those are all men. Arguably, because that one on the far left, that's a boy. Ew. Ew, but that's the kind of place that we're going tonight. We're diving down in the bayou with the crab people. Oh no, oh yes, get ready. Now I want you to sit back. And before we get started, everything sounding good? Everything, am I coming through all right? I want you to relax. Get your drink of choice and and cut you off a piece of that cake. That cake with a baby baked in it. What? Spirit, what jive you talking? Look, don't look at me. Don't look at me.
It's a little confusing to out-of-towners.
You have to make a baby cake.
They gave it their best shot.
It's supposed to mean like prosperity for the year ahead.
But everyone in Louisiana knows if you get the baby in your piece of king cake,
what should I do?
The next one's on you. And the babies are big business.
We order about hundreds of thousands of babies.
To find out where the tradition came from, we visited Matt Haynes. He literally wrote the book on king cake. He says the baby's roots go back thousands of years to the ancient Romans. Their big festival was Saturnalia.
Tons of drinking, tons of music, people dressed up in colorful costumes, so very similar to our Mardi Gras.
They would bake a bean into a special cake. Whoever got it would be king or queen of the festival. Sounds familiar, except
they wouldn't have to bring another cake, rather they would be sacrificed to the gods.
Christians adopted the tradition, and they started eating the cake on 12th night. The custom evolved for hundreds of years. Some people kept the bean, others started using trinkets made of things like ceramic or porcelain. So how did we get to a baby? Enter Mackenzie's, New Orleans' beloved and sadly closed bakery chain. Owner Donald Entringer Sr. knew the beans had a little bit of a design flaw.
If you got the bean, you didn't want to bring the cake, you just swallowed it whole, and nobody knew.
The story goes that a salesman walked in one day with a briefcase of frozen charlottes. That was a small porcelain doll that people baked into other desserts. Entringer started putting them in his king cakes, and the idea spread. And even now, people put their own spin on the tradition. Bakeries like Haywood and Randazzo's see it all.
Some people like to add multiple babies in it so everybody could get the baby.
There are some techniques behind the scenes, too.
Show me the right way to put the baby in the king cake.
So, the right way to how to put the baby in the king cake, I usually just put him face down and get him snug into the king cake so he doesn't move anywhere.
So after all this time, an ancient tradition is now a modern bit of fun.
How'd that feel?
Satisfying a little bit.
Yeah, what's up with the baby?
Yeah, so the baby dates back, the ancient Romans, it was a bean. And the bean was a fava bean, and that was hidden inside the cake, and whoever got that bean would be crowned king or queen for the Saturnalia festival was what they were celebrating.
The king cake dates back centuries to an ancient Roman festival celebrating the solstice. Adopted by Christianity, versions are still found throughout the world. Most Louisiana king cakes are adorned with purple, green, and gold. Every carnival season, the Kaywood brothers, Nick and Kenny Jr., along with the rest of their family at Kaywood and Randazzo's, knead, braid, fill, bake, ice, and pack 50,000 cakes, with 50,000 babies hidden inside. Pretty hard work for the Big Easy, but they sell enough king cakes during Mardi Gras to close for the rest of the year.
When king cake season is done, what do you do?
Vacation.
Yeah.
We go fishing and
For 9 months?
well,
Yeah.
4 months, and then hunting the other 3 months.
It's crazy, huh?
Yeah, I'm in the wrong business.
We're all in the wrong business. We should be baking babies and cakes for Saturnalia. Nothing to see here, folks. Nothing to see here, because Mardi Gras is an ancient tradition. The first record of Mardi Gras being celebrated in Louisiana was in 1699 as part of an observance of Catholic practice. The date of the first celebration of festivities in New Orleans is unknown, but a 1730 account talked about celebrating with music and dance and masking and costuming, including cross-dressing. You think that this is all just a new phenomenon? No. Drag Time Story Hour started 300 years ago, before America was ever even a country. Think about that. Weird.
Weird.
It doesn't end there, folks. Because in 1856, 21 businessmen gathered at a club room in the French Quarter to organize a secret society to observe Mardi Gras with a formal parade. A secret society. They formed and founded the New Orleans' first and oldest crew, the Mystic Crew of Cumis. What's a crew? Well, it turns out to put on Mardi Gras festivities, you need the work of all of these organizations called crews. And some of them are basically secret societies. Some of them are all-male secret societies. Some of them are all-male secret societies where they hide their identities. Crews, and there's hundreds of them. Hundreds. And it goes all the way back to the 1800s. Wild.
The way that we celebrate Mardi Gras now, and for the last 150 years, revolves around what we call the crew system. There are all these clubs that exist that are called Mardi Gras crews.
All hail the king!
For the dozens of crews, spelled with a K, lavish balls highlight Mardi Gras. The Knights of Sparta crew was founded in 1951. For the last 30 years, they've paraded in the city and currently host a masquerade ball and parade that falls on the next to the last weekend of carnival season. The crew's captain does not publicly reveal his identity. He says it isn't about secrecy.
I wear the mask, however, because it is the tradition of carnival to mask, to hide one's identity, because when I represent my carnival crew, the Knights of Sparta, I am simply the captain. One should not know my name or who I am.
Belonging to or leading a crew takes a big commitment.
It is very costly to the members of the organization, paying dues, buying the trinkets, the throws as we call them, to throw off the floats, ball gowns for the ladies, tickets to different functions. And we do it because of a sense of tradition.
Wow, a sense of tradition of masking oneself and hiding one's identity in all-male fraternities of businessmen who all together organize through secret societies a once-a-year party. You know what we say around these parts.
Weird.
And I don't think that will ever, you know, I don't think that will have anything to do with what we're talking about with the rest of tonight. No. Because we're just setting the stage here. We're just talking about Mardi Gras and the crew system and how the first openly gay crew was the crew of Yuga, founded in 1958 by members of the gay community. The queen was always a gay man dressed in drag, and homosexuality was against the law at the time. So a tableau of balls of crew of Yuga were always clandestine, hidden away, and known only to those invited to participate in the festivities. Due to a police raid in 1962, the crew dissolved. However, the template for other gay crews had been set. And Mardi Gras is very gay. Always has been. So that's the first thing I want to talk about to set the stage for New Orleans. But there's another thing I want to quickly address. A little known event in history that isn't really widely talked about. let's talk briefly about Huey P. Long, also known as the Kingfish. He was a left-wing populist member of the Democratic Party who rose to national prominence during the Great Depression for his vocal criticism of FDR and the New Deal, which Long deemed as insufficiently radical. Insufficiently radical. A controversial figure, Long is celebrated as a populist champion of the poor or, conversely, denounced as a fascistic demagogue. As an attorney, he prosecuted large corporations such as Rockefeller's Standard Oil, and as governor, he expanded social programs, organized massive public works projects, and as a senator, he became an isolationist, arguing that Standard Oil and Wall Street orchestrated American foreign policy. He proposed a share our wealth system of massive federal spending, a wealth tax, and wealth redistribution. Bernie Sanders. And on September 8th, 1935, Long traveled to the state capitol to pass a bill that would gerrymander the district of an opponent, Judge Benjamin Pavey, who had held his position for 28 years. And at 9:20 p.m., just after the passage of the bill effectively removing Pavey, Pavey's son-in-law, Carl Weiss, approached Long and, according to generally accepted versions of events, fired a single shot with a handgun from about 4 feet away, striking Long in the torso. Long's bodyguards, nicknamed the Cossacks or Skull Crushers, then fired at Weiss with their pistols, killing him. An autopsy found Weiss had been shot at least 60 times. Evidence later surfaced that suggested Long was accidentally shot by one of his bodyguards, and proponents of this theory assert Long was caught in the crossfire as his bodyguard shot Weiss, and a bullet ricocheted off the marble walls and hit him. Wow. So it's with this, I want to set the stage for New Orleans. Let's collect our thoughts and think about what we have already assessed. We've got crab people. We've got gay secret societies since before America was ever a country. Crews of homosexual men making large-scale business decisions in the city. And then we've got the assassination of a populist politician by a lone nut assassin with a controversial conspiracy surrounding it 30 years before JFK. I think that's a good way to set the stage for Jim Garrison and what's about to happen. Let's talk about Jim Garrison. He's the district attorney of New Orleans Parish. And he's reading up on the Warren Commission after the Kennedy assassination, and stuff just isn't adding up. Stuff just isn't adding up. Now Garrison, he's a gangly tall fella. He's about 6'6". He's got them eyes that look different ways. Strange looking fella. And his opposition calls him the Jolly Green Giant. And he's reading the Warren Commission on the JFK assassination, thinking, man, this does not add up. Something ain't right. Because he's seeing all of the New Orleans connections. And as the district attorney in New Orleans Parish, he's got to look into this. And he's thinking, why did these great men in the Warren Commission not follow through on all of these leads? For instance, now, if you've been listening to Moose Heaven and following our JFK streams, you'll know that after Lee Harvey Oswald defected to Russia and got caught up in a whirlwind romance with his wife Marina, and then waltzed back into the country like nothing ever happened and goes to New Orleans. And it's in New Orleans that he's passing out his kooky Castro pamphlets, because he's associated with the Free Cuba Committee. And he's handing out these hands-off Cuba flyers right outside the International Trade Mart. And it's one day, while Lee Harvey Oswald is handing out his pro-Castro hands-off Cuba flyers, that he runs into an anti-Castro Cuban, Carlos Brignier. Now, on August 9th, 1963, in the summer before the Kennedy assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald was handing out his Fair Play for Cuba leaflets when he was involved in a fight with Brignier. Oswald was arrested on the 12th of August, and he was found guilty and fined $10. And while in prison, he was visited by FBI agent John L. Quigley. 5 days later, Oswald debated the issue of Fidel Castro and Cuba with Brignier on the Bill Stuckey radio show. Yeah. Brignier. Look, I'm just trying to pronounce it the right way. It's weird. Weird. This little fight with Brignier and Lee Harvey Oswald, it's really odd that somebody was there to film it.
A week before, Oswald got into a fight with 3 Cuban exiles because of the leaflets and was charged with disturbing the peace.
That's pretty weird that somebody just serendipitously was there with a camera to film that. Brignier's clothing store in New Orleans became a local headquarters for anti-Castro Cubans, and on August 5th, 1963, according to Brignier, Lee Harvey Oswald visited him at his store and posed as a friend of Cuban exiles offering to join the fight against Castro. The next day, Oswald again visited the store and left his guidebook for Marines for the absent Brignier. Brignier testified to the Warren Commission that he was uninterested in Oswald's offer. And on August 9th, 1963, Oswald was spotted handing out his pro-Castro Fair Play for Cuba leaflets at the intersection of Canal Street and St. Charles. Now, they were offended by Oswald's pro-Cuban stance, and the Cubans accosted Oswald and a crowd began to gather. Brignier attempted to incite the crowd with his story that Oswald had tried to join his anti-Castro movement and that Oswald was actually a communist supporter of Castro. Somebody grabbed Oswald's leaflets and fight broke out. Oswald and 3 Cubans were arrested for disturbing the peace, and after the arrest, Brignier and his Cuban friends were able to post bail, whereas Oswald's bond was posted by an Oswald family friend. Family friend. Oswald was found guilty, fined $10, and released. And before leaving the police station, Oswald is asked to speak with an FBI agent for over an hour. That's weird. I mean, it's not like Carlos Bringay is some kind of, I don't know, operative to provide some kind of alibi for why Oswald would be this crazy lone nut communist assassin. I don't know how he would, I don't know how he could pose in that role.
I had the opportunity to meet Lee Harvey Oswald on 4 different times in New Orleans. The first time was when he tried to infiltrate the Cuban Student Directorate, that is the organization that I represent in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I believe that if he was working at that moment for the Fair Play for Cuba Committee and he was trying to infiltrate one anti-Castro organization, it's obvious that he was working for somebody else at that moment, and that somebody else could not be anyone else than Fidel Castro.
And what do we say around here? Thank you very much, by the way. What do we say around here when anybody accuses Fidel Castro of being the mastermind of the Kennedy assassination? What do we say around here? Bullshit. Bullshit, Mr. Handman.
You feel Cubans are involved in this plot?
I believe that if they are Cuban involved in this plot, they are Castro's Cuban. As I told you, I am positive sure that behind the assassination was Castro's hand, and we are trying to turn over any evidence that we could show proving those facts.
Have you made any investigation prior to the last few weeks?
Yes, sir.
Have you turned any information over to the federal government?
I tell you, I have turned information to all sources that I believe that could be interesting.
Do you believe there is a conspiracy involved?
I believe that Castro was involved in Kennedy's assassination.
Hold on. This whole operation was your idea.
Is that what you're saying, Mr. Bringay? Is that what you're saying?
Hold on. This whole operation was your idea.
Is that what you're saying? It's all Castro. He was all Castro. Thank you very much. Welcome, Job 411. Thank you very much. And so that's how Lee Harvey Oswald gets mugshotted, fingerprinted, entered into the system, just like all of these other revolutionaries. That's how he gets a paper trail as a lone nut assassin, communist sympathizer, wackadoo, handing out his kooky Castro flyers. There's something else on those kooky Castro flyers. Something else that tipped off old District Attorney Garrison. Something else. You see, there was an address for his Fair Play for Cuba committee stamped on those flyers. An address. And that address went to a building. That building was called the Newman Building, and that building had 2 entrances, one on the front, one on the side. Two different addresses. Not to mention the Newman Building sitting right down from the Secret Service building, from the FBI building. It's right across catty corner to the Office of Naval Intelligence and the post office that's being used as a CIA front where Carrie Thornley is working at. More on that later. But the Newman Building. What's up, Batfink? The Newman Building. What else is going on at the Newman Building? Because that's where Lee Harvey Oswald's got his one-man pro-Castro organization. But what else is going on there? It also happens to be the offices for former FBI agent Guy Bannister, who's an ardent anti-communist, and he is spying on all of these pro-Castro groups and communist sympathizing groups. that's strange. Guy Bannister. I've never seen this photo before, and I was able to dig it up. That's Guy Bannister. When he was a real G-man. He was a real fucking G-man looking G-man with the FBI. And I imagine that in his heyday, Guy Bannister was cracking a few skulls going around saying, "Look here, Rummy. Where'd you pinch the hooch?" He just looks like that kind of guy. I wouldn't mess with a Guy Bannister. He also happens to be running with this guy named Robert Mayu, who worked for the FBI and the CIA as a chief executive of Nevada operations for the industrialist Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes? Wow. We're connecting dots because where have we heard about Howard Hughes before in his connection to funding Richard Nixon's political career? Robert Mayu was hired by the FBI and worked in counterintelligence in Europe during World War II. And we're about to find out all these guys worked in counterintelligence during World War II. Mayu was apparently summoned to Vice President Richard Nixon's office in 1954 at the behest of the National Security Council, and Nixon gave Mayu a green light to employ a series of dirty tricks to wreck a pending agreement between Greek shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, who later went on to marry Jackie Kennedy. Wow! Pepe Sylvia dots are being formed. And the King of Saudi Arabia. Wow, so this was Nixon's go-to hit guy to employ dirty tricks to wreck a pending agreement between Aristotle Onassis and the King of Saudi Arabia. And Guy Bannister was associated with this guy. Mayu also worked for the CIA and would later recall, "The CIA was my first steady client, giving me cutout assignments, those jobs in the agency which could not officially be involved." And Mayu's investigative agency was said to be the model for the television series Mission Impossible. In the summer of 1960, the CIA recruited Mayu to approach the West Coast representative of the Chicago mob, Johnny Rosselli, and when Mayu contacted Rosselli, Mayu hid the fact that he was sent by the CIA, instead portraying himself as an advocate for international corporations. He offered to pay $150,000 to have Castro killed, but Rosselli declined any pay, and Rosselli introduced Mayu to two men he referred to as Sam Gold and Joe. Sam Gold was Sam Giancana, and Joe was Santos Traficante Jr., the Tampa, Florida boss, and one of the most powerful mobsters in the pre-revolution Cuba. Where have we heard all of this before? After Fidel Castro led a revolution that toppled a friendly government in 1959, the CIA was desperate to eliminate him, and so the agency sought out a partner equally worried about Castro, the Mafia. And the Mafia.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
You know what I'm saying? Which had lucrative investments in Cuban casinos. In testimony before the Church Committee in 1975, Mayu confirmed his role in the assassination plot against Castro, saying that he thought the United States was just involved in a war. And this is the guy who's involved with Guy Bannister, who has his offices at the same place that Lee Harvey Oswald is running his one-man pro-Castro Cuban group out of. Isn't that weird? Isn't that weird? That's somebody who's so violently anti-Castro would be associating with somebody who's supposedly pro-Castro, right? After leaving the FBI, Bannister established his own private detective agency. around the corner, but located in the same building as Lee Harvey Oswald's Fair Play for Cuba Committee. The Newman Building housed militant anti-Castro groups, including the Cuban Revolutionary Council and Sergio Arcacha Smith's Crusade to Free Cuba Committee. Bannister was implicated in a 1961 raid on a munitions depot in Houma, Louisiana. In various weapons, grenades, and ammunition were stolen, which were reportedly seen stacked in Bannister's back room by several witnesses. And a newspaper reported an allegation that Bannister served as the munitions supplier for the Bay of Pigs invasion and continued to deal weapons in his office until after 1963. Here Kennedy died. In 1963, Bannister and anti-Castro activist David Ferry began working with a lawyer named G. Ray Gill and his client, New Orleans mafia boss Carlos Marcello. Lot to unpack. They were all involved, Guy Bannister, David Ferry, and lawyer G. Ray Gill, with his client, Carlos Marcello, the New Orleans mafia boss, in attempts to block Carlos Marcello's deportation to Guatemala. More on that later. And in early 1962, Bannister assisted David Ferry in a dispute with Eastern Airlines regarding charges brought against Ferry by the airline and the New Orleans police of crimes against nature and extortion. During this period, Ferry was frequently seen at Bannister's office. He practically lived there, and Bannister served as a character witness for Ferry at his airline pilot's grievance board hearing in the summer of 1963. Guy Bannister is serving as a character witness for David Ferry. David Ferry, you know him. You love him, David Ferry. Somebody trusted this guy with a baby. That's the most terrifying aspect. David Ferry. So who is David Ferry? Well, only one of the most disturbing and fascinating individuals in history, in modern history. Whew. David Ferry. David motherfucking Ferry. Because there's a lot to unpack with this guy. A lot.
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
Well, that's David Ferry. That's David Ferry. What an interesting guy. So who is David Ferry? Well, David Ferry was a devout Roman Catholic who attended seminary school. In fact, that's David Ferry in his little seminary school outfit. Look at him. That's David Ferry. However, he left seminary because of emotional instability. I'll leave it up to you what that means. I'll leave it up to you what that means.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Shut up, Kevin Bacon. We're talking about David Ferry. Look, David Ferry was a really good pilot. He was a really good pilot. He just, happened to be taking young boys to houses of prostitution and just happened to lose his job with Eastern Airlines because of morals charges. Morals charges, because that's him. in his Eastern Airlines uniform. He was taking young boys up in the cockpit, putting the plane on autopilot and doing all sorts of deviant things that would lead to one getting fired from their job at Eastern Airlines. He's also smuggling heroin. That's right. And he's associated with this guy, which we don't have time to get into tonight, but Barry Seal, an American commercial airline pilot who became a major drug smuggler with the cartel. He's associated with this guy. Also, he's doing flights in U-2 spy planes. Here he is in his high-altitude U-2 spy plane uniform. He's an interesting cat. Let's be real here, right? Despite his immoralities, he's just a fascinating fucking weird dude. David Ferry, and he's involved with the Civil Air Patrol. And when he moves to New Orleans, he becomes their commander and instructor. And let's be real here, he's molesting all these young boys. And that would be weird. That would be weird, right? If Lee Harvey Oswald was like one of his cadets when Lee Harvey Oswald was like a young boy, when he was molesting these young boys, and oh shit, no, wait, oh shit. No, totally. That totally happened. Yeah, Lee Harvey Oswald was in David Ferry's Civil Air Patrol unit when David Ferry was, molesting young boys. And Lee Harvey Oswald was a young boy. Well, fuck. And in September 1960, he started his own unofficial squadron. He just started his own civilian squadron called the Maytree Falcon Cadet Squadron. An offshoot of this group was the Internal Mobile Security Unit, a group formed for the fight against Fidel Castro's Cuba. Over the years, he used both his official and unofficial squadrons to develop improper relations with boys ranging in age from 14 to 18, and in August 1961, arrests caused the Falcons to fold. So, David Ferry. I know, you're asking yourself,
what the fuck is this piece of shit?
well, I'm here to tell you it only gets worse, so strap in.
So, just who was this man, David Ferry, who recruited both Barry Seal and Lee Harvey Oswald? Just how much can CIA agents get away with? Would you believe child molestation? In 1961, David Ferry was arrested on numerous charges of pedophilia. Meet the New Orleans cops who busted Ferry for molesting young boys.
Well, from the statements we got, we arrested, I think, if I can remember correct, was harboring runaways, contributed to delinquency of juveniles, and I think there was a crime against nature.
Well, we were investigating a Civil Air Patrol outfit whose parents were complaining to us that their boys were, from time to time, on runaway status, were missing, and had been missing for some time. We discovered that he was having sexual relations with the boys, contributing to their delinquency, doing things like if he moved into a new apartment, all the boys would sit around in a circle and masturbate, celebrating the new event. We arrested him. We executed a search warrant as properly as the law calls for.
Normally, anyone arrested for molesting children wants to slip into a hole somewhere and pull it in after him. Instead, David Ferry had warrants issued for the police officers who arrested him.
We discovered that arrest warrants were put out for us. Arrest warrants for myself and other men who had been on the raid at his home. And it was a big shock to me to find that he had secured arrest warrants for our arrests. It was a frightening moment for me because I couldn't imagine having done anything wrong, and to have a search warrant out for me, an arrest warrant out for me was somewhat terrifying, but it went on for a number of days, the fright and the fear and the intimidation that I felt.
Couldn't believe it. It's never happened before, anything like that, you know? I figured he had to know somebody, and that's the only thing I could figure. He had a little power.
That here was a man with incredible power. He had some power somewhere to do this to us. And we were, as I said, 40 years ago, we were young, naive young men. We didn't quite understand what was happening to us. But the thought occurred to me that he had a CIA connection. It did occur to me, and I had really no idea where it was coming from, but I knew it was some incredible force behind him, helping him.
What happened next was even more bizarre.
As the time went on, I started getting phone calls from Cubans who claimed that they were head of the Cuban Revolutionary Front here in New Orleans. And on one occasion, I was told that they could deliver runaway boys for me. This was from the Cubans. If we would promise not to prosecute Captain Ferry.
In America, when you were
pretty wild shit. And thank you, James Campisi, for reminding me that I didn't even address an important feature. The eyebrows. Let's talk about the eyebrows for a second. David Ferry had alopecia, and so he drew on his eyebrows with shoe polish. One allegation is that he used collected pubic hair from his male, friends for his eyebrows. And he had these homemade wigs. He's a weird dude.
Weird.
But fascinating. Because he's also like a polymath. He can talk about philosophy and military history. He's an accomplished pilot. He's working on a cure for cancer with mice. More on that in another episode, because that's a whole other monkey to unpack. But let's talk about this. This is a weird letter that was found among David Ferry's belongings. I don't know personally when this letter was found, which particular raid, but it was kept confidential. And let's get into it. This is called the Dear Bastard letter. And it goes like this. Dear Bastard, got your letter from December 30th. Did you get my Christmas letter and the letter with the airplane pictures? You did not say, so I was not sure whether you got them or not. One of my flight students loaned me some sex movies for one night. It was 2 reels of 8mm film with some dude fucking this broad. He got his nuts jerking under her knee and she blew him. He fucked her in the ass twice and in the pussy twice. Hope I can get them back when you get back so you can see them too. Jimmy was over here and I showed him and the cum flew that night. Gross. I could have raped an exhaust pipe, they made me so hot. David Ferry has such a way with words. That Cloud 9 you sent was tops. What is it? Can you bring more? If you have to pay for it, let me know and I'll send you the dough. Bring plenty when you get back. Have you tried pills? There's a bunch of different ones. Some make you get on Cloud 9 too. Send me some. Send me some if you can expect more than last time. Except more than last time. The weather continues to be its shittiest. I'm losing money like a motherfucker. I hope this shit stops soon. Still no business or the beach to speak of. I'm worried somewhat. We'll have to talk about $110 an hour for it to make a profit. Some other guy, a big politician, came by and started talking to me today about buying an Aztec 6 place with all the goodies, double ILS, 3 light marker beacon, ADF and DME, and putting it to work. He claims that he's in the business to keep it going. I hope he's right. When do you hit the States? What date? What date do you hit New Orleans? When are we going to get bombed, etc., etc., etc.? Right, you bitch. And give me the word, David Ferry. Wow. Got such a way with words, that David Ferry. But that's not all. That's not all. Ferry described himself as a liberal and liberal on civil rights issues, but he was rabidly anti-communist, accusing previous U.S. presidential administrations of being sellouts to communism. And Ferry initially supported Castro's campaign against Batista in Cuba, but by mid-1959 became convinced that Castro was a communist, and according to U.S. House Select Committee on Assassinations, Ferry found an outlet for his political fanaticism in the anti-Castro movement. And by early '61, Ferry was working with right-wing Cuban exile Sergio Arcacha Smith, head of the CIA-backed Cuban Democratic Revolutionary Front in New Orleans, and Ferry soon became Arcacha Smith's eager partner in counter-revolutionary activities, and both were involved in a raid in late '61 on a munitions depot in Houma, Louisiana, in which various weapons, grenades, and ammunition were stolen with Guy Bannister. Ferry often spoke to business and civic groups on political issues, and in July '61, Ferry gave an anti-Kennedy speech before a New Orleans chapter of the Military Order of World Wars, in which his topic was the presidential administration and the Bay of Pigs fiasco. And in his speech, Ferry attacked Kennedy for refusing to provide air support for the Bay of Pigs. And Ferry's tirade against Kennedy was so poorly received that he was asked to leave. And Ferry admitted to the FBI after the assassination that when speaking about Kennedy, he might have used the expression, "he ought to be shot." Ferry insisted, however, that these words were just an offhand or colloquial expression. Just a turn of the phrase, if you will. And in early '60s, Ferry became involved with Guy Bannister in right-wing political activist, segregationist, and private investigator. Bannister also worked with Ferry's associate, Sergio Arcacha Smith, and together in the Newman Building. They worked together, which was the same building printed on Lee Harvey Oswald's pamphlets. And in '62, Bannister assisted Ferry in his dispute with the Eastern Airlines regarding charges brought against Ferry by the airline and New Orleans police for crimes against nature and extortion. And during this period, Ferry was often seen in Bannister's office. Bannister testified to Ferry's good character. And according to several witnesses, Ferry and Bannister also worked together in the fall of '63 for lawyer G. Ray Gill on behalf of Gill's client, New Orleans mafia boss Carlos Marcello, in an attempt to block Marcello's deportation to Guatemala. More on that later. G. Ray Gill. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about it. So G. Ray Gill is a lawyer who Ferry is working as an assistant for, and G. Ray Gill just happens to be a lawyer for New Orleans mob boss Carlos Marcello. who's Carlos Marcello? Well, some call him the godfather of the New Orleans Mafia. And by the end of '47, Marcello had taken control of Louisiana's illegal gambling network. He joined forces with Genovese crime family associate Meyer Lansky. The treasurer for the mob, the accountant for the mob, Meyer Lansky, in order to skim money from some of the most important casinos in the New Orleans area. So, Marcello's making the majority of his money off of illegal gambling and heroin trafficking. He also just happens to run a strip club called the 500 Club, where a guy named Jack Ruby comes to get strippers for his own carousel club. More on that in a future episode. But don't tell that to Carlos Marcello. No, he's a legitimate businessman. He didn't make all that money from illegal gambling and heroin trafficking and stripping and having his fingers in all the pies. Nah, he was selling tomatoes. He was just selling tomatoes.
Now, who have you sold tomatoes to?
A lot of fruit stand and grocery stores.
Is your testimony that in the last 5 or 6 years you've been going around to grocery stores in the New Orleans area and selling tomatoes?
I've been to fruit stands and markets.
When was the last time you were to a fruit stand?
Oh, I was at a fruit stand last week.
To sell tomatoes?
Well, not exactly. I go there to see them. See how they're doing, and I bought some fruits myself.
In other words, you were just shopping for some fruit yourself. Yes. I'm asking you about you're supposed to be earning money, according to the information you give the Internal Revenue, of $20,000 approximately a year, selling tomatoes. Now, where do you sell these tomatoes?
Supermarkets and grocery and fruit stands.
All right, would you tell us the last sale that you made to a supermarket?
The last sale I made?
Yeah.
I don't make sales every day. They're customer mine.
You said they're customers of yours. Would you name the largest customer you have?
Well, they're all large. I couldn't tell you unless I look at the book.
All right, would you tell me one of the customers that you sell tomatoes to? Now, you're in this business for 6 years. You tell the Internal Revenue Service that you've been selling tomatoes. Now, I want to know who you're selling the tomatoes to. Isn't it a fact that it's a phony job? You don't sell tomatoes at all? This is just a way of legitimizing illegal income?
No, it's not a phony job.
All right, then tell me who you sell the tomatoes to.
I sell to a lot of people in New Orleans.
You haven't been able to mention one. Can you mention one person you sell tomatoes to?
Just selling tomatoes. Just selling tomatoes. Packed with heroin. But don't look into that. And there's a reason that nobody's looking into Carlos Marcello, is because he's using all of that freshly squeezed tomato money to pay off the New Orleans police and all the police in Louisiana to look the other way. So Marcello has got the cops under his thumb, and he's running all of his little schemes. The cops are looking the other way, but eventually it starts catching up to him. And on March 24th, 1959, Marcello appeared before the United States Senate's McClellan Committee investigating organized crime. Serving as chief counsel to the committee was Robert F. Kennedy, and his brother, Senator John F. Kennedy. As a member of the committee, in response to the committee questioning, Marcello invoked the Fifth Amendment and refused to answer any questions relating to his background, activities, and associates, and from then on, Marcello became an avowed enemy of the Kennedys. It's not like anything bad happens to the Kennedys.
Nothing bad ever happens to the Kennedys.
I feel like this deserves to be looked into more, don't you? So let's talk about the McClellan hearings.
An example of our Washington coverage occurred in March when the Senate Rackets Committee probed gangster law enforcement tie-ups in Jefferson Parish, which is part of the greater New Orleans area. Among the men subpoenaed to testify was Carlos Marcello, a man seldom photographed or filmed, the alleged kingpin of Jefferson rackets.
Do you have any financial arrangements directly or indirectly with Mr. William Cosey, who is the present sheriff of Jefferson Parish?
I decline to answer on the same ground.
Have there been any arrangements that have been made between you and the sheriff and any other officials of government to keep unionization out of Jefferson Parish?
I decline to answer on the same ground.
Now, according to the information that we have, you are an associate of Mr. Frank Costello, is that right?
I decline to answer on the ground of mere intent incriminating.
What's a tomato? I never heard of such a thing. Now, one racket that Marcello has his hands in that we need to talk about is organized labor. Organized labor, because it's not just Carlos Marcello who's being grilled at the McClellan hearings. The head of the Teamsters is getting grilled, and who was that again? Remind me again. Who was that? Who was the head of the Teamsters, and who was grilling them at the McClellan committee?
Kennedy returned to his desk, increased in stature by his convention experience, ready to set his sights on the presidential nomination for 1960. He was assigned to the Senate Labor Rackets Committee headed by Senator McClellan, with Bobby Kennedy as its counsel and Barry Goldwater as a fellow member. He introduced a bill to correct abuses of big business and big labor. Opposing the bill was Jimmy Hoffa, leader of the Teamsters Union.
I would be very happy to have our legal counsel here, our legislative representative here, assisting me in spending as much time as necessary to acquaint the American people with the fact that this is a strike-breaking, union-busting bill, in my opinion.
Mr. Hoffa, this bill is not a strike-breaking, union-busting bill. You're the best argument I know for it. Your testimony here this afternoon, your complete indifference to the fact that numerous people who hold responsible positions in your union come before this committee and take the Fifth Amendment because an honest answer might tend to incriminate them. Your complete indifference to it, I think, makes this bill essential.
That's right. Jimmy Hoffa. What's up, Manny? What's up, Big B Trucker? Welcome, guys. Jimmy Hoffa, that's right. And what did Jimmy Hoffa have to say about the McClellan hearings again? Remind me.
Everybody knows that this is a fiasco, a circus, and is merely to push through what common sense would not normally have the Congress of the United States pass any wiretapping bill where you can spy on every individual in the United States. Now, the covering up of his inability to prove any reason, any sound reason for wiretapping, has brought on this display before the American people of a carnival that the McClellan Committee has consistently put on since the day they started.
Mr. Hoffa, Robert Kennedy testified today at the first McClellan Committee hearings on the Cosa Nostra. He called for a broader wiretap law.
That's why he had a murderer, a dope peddler, on the witness stand. So he can push through a wiretap so he can have a greater police state than he already has in this country for a wiretapping. If I want to talk to my wife, my daughter, or my son, or anybody else, I don't need somebody spying on me, and I'm sure everybody in this country feels the same way.
Are you questioning the legitimacy of these McClellan Committee hearings?
I say that it's nothing more or less than the McClellan Committee hearings to be held to try and again get public sentiment, excitement, to put through a wiretap bill that would be the first step towards a further greater police state in this country. They realize that
That's wiretapping and eavesdropping going on telephone conversations today that it really doesn't make much difference.
That's not true. Only those individuals of the government where they admit that they're wiretapping. And certain states that permit wiretapping with a very limited, narrow right to wiretap in certain instruments approved by a judge. There's some protection towards the average citizen. But you leave indiscriminate wiretapping take place, leave it to the imagination of an attorney general like Bobby Kennedy, and you will find that we will have phones tapped in this country by the hundreds of thousands for no reason whatsoever except a personal desire to destroy those who may oppose him.
Wow, well, Mr. Hoffa, I'm here from the future. Wow. Think about it. If the Kennedys will wiretap Hoffa, they'll wiretap you too. And Hoffa did get sent to prison. He was indicted for jury tampering, and he was in fact sent in with the homos.
Prisons are never beautiful, they're horrible.
So there's been a lot of talk about the idea of cutting men off from normal family contacts, from sexual contacts, and the resulting violence from that. Was homosexuality a big problem where you were?
45% of the people in the prison either are homosexuals or practice homosexuality, and is brought about by the prison recognizing it as a way of life. If you want to live with somebody, you simply go in the captain's office, apply for a double cell, and you become man and wife. Now, this doesn't last long, and eventually, so the homo will start flirting with somebody else, and that brings violence, either through stabbing or fighting, and sometimes riots. We consistently have tried, through the National Association of Justice, and I've tried while I was in prison, to get them to confine the homosexuals into other quarters. But instead of that, they put them right alongside of you. You may reach out on one hand and touch one, or a murderer upstairs, or a man with 50 years alongside of you. And when you're trying to sleep under those conditions, unless you have a tremendous willpower, you're constantly with one eye open, looking to see whether or not you'll survive the night for the next day. And if you try that for a period of weeks or months, you'll find that it has an effect on you.
Wow. So the Kennedys sent Hoffa to prison with the homos. I wonder why Hoffa might have a beef with the Kennedys. I wonder. Boy, I wonder who killed Kennedy, right? It's just too difficult to ever figure out. It's just a mystery wrapped inside a riddle, inside an enigma. We'll never know, fellas. We'll never know. Not like Jimmy Hoffa had any beef with the Kennedys. No. It's not like Santos Traficante and Carlos Marcello and Jimmy Hoffa all shared a lawyer. They all shared a lawyer named Frank Regano. Seen at the head of the table, far right. Frank Regano By 1960, Regano was already known as a shrewd and up-and-coming criminal defense attorney who defended a wide range of clients thanks to a recommendation from Santos Trafficante. Regano was hired by Jimmy Hoffa to represent him on a union corruption charges, thus beginning a long association with the infamous labor leader, and he used his position with Hoffa to help place loans of the Teamsters pension funds in returns for a finder's fee. In other words, so the Teamsters pension funds were being skimmed by the mob, is in other words. And Liberace, the entertainer, was one such client for whom he attempted to get a Teamsters loan. Regano witnessed kickbacks of millions of dollars to Hoffa from the Teamsters pension fund. And in 1963, again, on Trafficante's recommendation, Regano began serving as attorney for Carlos Marcello. And in his book, Regano claimed that Hoffa, who was being hounded by RFK on corruption and jury tampering charges, asked him to convey a message to Trafficante and Marcello that an assassination on JFK should be arranged. And when Kennedy was shot and killed later that year, Regano wrote that Hoffa always assumed that Trafficante and Marcello had actually carried out such a plan. Trafficante did celebrate with Regano upon hearing the word of Kennedy's assassination, but made no admission to Regano at the time that he was in any way involved. He did tell Regano later that the CIA had once asked him to help assassinate Castro in Cuba, and in 1975, Regano was asked by Trafficante to convey an urgent message to Hoffa to, quote, "Be very careful and not take any chances," and within days, Hoffa disappeared under mysterious circumstances, never to be found. But Spirit, I hear you say it's not like Jimmy Hoffa was so mad at the Kennedys and at JFK that he refused to have the flag lowered at half-mast when Kennedy was killed, and then said he'd do it again. It's not like that happened.
There is a story, though, that is unpleasant, that you refused to have the flag lowered to half-mast when John F. Kennedy was killed. And you hated all the Kennedys.
No, that isn't correct. I didn't feel that he deserved what I had witnessed of him, both as a senator and as a president, that we should lower the flag of our building for a man that I did not have a respect for. The office I have a respect for, him I had no respect for. And I did instruct them not to send our people home and not to lower the flag. And I would do it again tomorrow if it had to happen.
And who pardoned Jimmy Hoffa? Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon pardoned Jimmy Hoffa. Hello, Maureen. But let's get back to Carlos Marcello. Why would Carlos Marcello hate the Kennedys? Why would Carlos Marcello hate the Kennedys, you ask? Well, on April 4th, 1961, the U.S. Justice Department, under the direction of Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy, apprehended Marcello as he made what he assumed was a routine visit to the immigration authorities in New Orleans, and then deported him to Guatemala. They kidnapped him and deported him to Guatemala, and then 2 months later, he was on his way back to New Orleans. And guess who flew him there? David Ferry. There you go. You thought we'd forgotten about Ferry? Nope. We're making connections. David Ferry flew Marcello back after his deportation to Guatemala by the Kennedys. Are you starting to put things together here? Despite the U.S. Justice Department's efforts to deport Marcello, he was back in New Orleans thanks to David Ferrie. And in November 1963, what else happened November 1963? What happened November 1963 again? Well, Marcelo was being tried for conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government by obtaining a false Guatemalan birth certificate and conspiracy to obstruct the U.S. government in exercise of its right to deport him. And he was acquitted the same day that Kennedy was assassinated. I'll let you put that together for a moment. So, dig this. So the Kennedys deport Marcelo to Guatemala. They basically up and kidnap him. David Ferrie flies him back. And then the same day that Kennedy's killed, Marcelo is found not guilty in his deportation case. The same day. And then that same day that Carlos Marcelo is acquitted in his deportation case, Guy Bannister and one of his employees, an investigator by the name of Jack Martin, this skeletal looking guy, Jack Martin, who by all accounts is a drunk and doesn't do really much work for Bannister. But Jack and Bannister are drinking together in a local bar. And Jack Martin's starting to put all of this together. He's seen all of these weird Cubans hanging around Bannister's office all summer. Kennedy gets killed, Marcelo gets off. David Ferrie, he's seen Lee Harvey Oswald hanging around, and now they're saying Lee Harvey Oswald doing it. He's putting this all together in his mind. They've been out drinking in Bannister. Bannister says to Jack Martin, he gets real suspicious. You've been going through my files. Now, Bannister's this old FBI GI man, and he's got these files of incriminating evidence. He's his own little J. Edgar Hoover filing cabinet of information, and that's his thing. And he's all paranoid that Jack Martin's been going through his files on Lee Harvey Oswald. He's starting to put things together. Bannister starts pistol whipping Jack Martin, beating him half to death. Jack Martin replied, "What are you gonna do? Kill me like you did Kennedy?" Bannister drew his .357 and pistol whipped Martin's. In the ensuing days, Martin told reporters and authorities that Ferrie might have been involved in the assassination, and Martin told the New Orleans police that Ferrie was supposed to have been the getaway pilot in the assassination, and that Ferrie threatened Kennedy's life, even outlining plans to kill him, and that Ferrie might have taught Oswald to use a rifle with a telescopic sight. Martin also claimed that Ferrie had known Oswald from their days in the Civil Air Patrol, and that he had seen a photograph at Ferrie's home of them together. Martin also told a bail bondsman that he'd heard on television that Ferrie's New Orleans library card had been found in Oswald's possession when he was arrested in Dallas, which we have evidence of. Martin said on a television program that reported that the library card of David Ferrie had been found in the possession of Oswald in Dallas. However, cut to the chase, there was no such library card found on Lee Harvey Oswald. Interesting. Nevertheless, David reported to Ferrie's employer, G. Ray Gill, that Oswald was in possession of Ferry's library card. In fact, no such library card was found among Oswald's possessions, and Ferry subsequently visited both Oswald's former New Orleans landlady and former neighbor about this report, and Ferry was able to produce his library card to FBI agents who interviewed him 3 days later. Ferry's freaking out about this report that apparently Lee Harvey Oswald might have his library card, and Martin also claimed that Ferry had driven from New Orleans to Texas on the night of the assassination. What? When questioned by the FBI, Ferry stated that he and two friends drove 350 miles to the Winterland skating rink in Houston, about 240 miles from Dallas that evening. Ferry said that he had been considering for some time the feasibility and possibility of opening an ice skating rink in New Orleans and wanted to gather information on the ice skating rink business. He stated that he introduced himself to the manager, Chuck Rowland, and spoke with him at length concerning the cost and installation and operation of the rink. And in fact, on November 28, 1963, Lee Fletcher talked about how David Ferry, Alvin Boboof, and Melvin Coffey, his friends, his live-in roommate friends, young boy friends, how they visited the Winterland skating rink, talking about how David Ferry wanted to open a skating rink, but he most of the time spent his time talking to somebody on a telephone. It's all very weird, and look, it's a rabbit hole. He might not even been there. I don't want to unpack that right now, but Martin's telling all kinds of stuff. I find this interesting. What was Ferry's brother's name? I don't know, but he's mixed up in a nuclear business some kind of way. He's an atomic scientist. What the fuck? What the fuck? David Ferry's brother is a nuclear scientist. Wow. And Ferry was in Dallas, or at least Fort Worth, 2 days before the assassination of JFK. Now, on November 25th, Martin was contacted by the FBI. Martin told the FBI that Ferry might have hypnotized Oswald into assassinating Kennedy, and the FBI considered Martin's evidence as unreliable. Nevertheless, FBI agents interviewed Ferry twice about Martin's allegations. Understand that David Ferry is getting interviewed like 3 days after the JFK assassination because of what Jack Martin's spilling. Ferry admitted that he had made public and private statements criticizing Kennedy's actions during the Bay of Pigs, but he never denied ever stating the president should be killed. He stated that he had no recollection of ever having met Oswald, and if he had a meeting, it was very casual. Ferry stated that Martin had bedeviled him in every manner possible, since sending him out of Gill's office in an undiplomatic manner. Gill told FBI that Martin blamed Ferry for not getting a job, and subsequently slandered Ferry at every opportunity, and the FBI said that it was unable to develop a substantial case against Ferry. An inquiry later conducted a decade and a half later concluded that the FBI's overall investigation of what was going on in the Newman building at the time of the assassination was clearly not thorough. The devil, you say. Not to mention, what did Miss Gay find? We're talking about gay things, so let's talk about Mrs. Gay. Mrs. Bootsy Gay. In an interview with Mrs. Bootsy Gay, who came into the office of G. Ray Gill, Mrs. Gay stated that just prior to the assassination, she was having G. Ray Gill do some legal work of a civil nature for her, and she made several trips to Gill's office and observed David Ferry, who had an office at Gill's office, and as she understood that Ferry was an investigator for Gill, and the day following the JFK assassination, Mrs. Gay went into Gill's office and observed that 2 female employees were cleaning out David Ferry's desk. She saw a chart or a sketch of which caught her eye, which was the fact that this chart had Elm Street written on it, and what appeared to be a street. There was also a building, and on the street was a square with the letters VIP written on the square. Mrs. Gay stated that she remarked to the recipient that this should be turned over to the FBI, and the receptionist then picked it off the desk and threw it in the trash, stating it was nothing. Mrs. Gay stated that then she took the document from the trash, stating that she would give it to the FBI, and the receptionist then grabbed the document from Mrs. Gay's hand and again threw it in the trash can. Mrs. Gay seemed to be about 60 years old, reasonably intelligent, slightly nervous, and very cooperative. She appears to be the type of individual that likes to see justice prevail. Don't we all? Don't we all? You know what? Let me introduce you to the real star of the show tonight, someone else who wants to see justice prevail, because Jim Garrison's looking at all of the things that we've just looked at, and he's saying this is sus. But there's one other thing that we haven't talked about that he's looking at in the Warren Commission, and that's the testimony of Dean Andrews, the jive-talking New Orleans attorney. Jive-talking New Orleans attorney who has a bold claim that he had a run-in with Lee Harvey Oswald. About some papers concerning his Marine discharge. He has some bold claims that are in the Warren Commission, and then saying that a mysterious figure might have sent him out to represent Oswald after the assassination. Let's take a look. This is in the Warren Commission, y'all. I present to you a theatrical reconstruction of an assistant from the Warren Commission interviewing jive-talking attorney Dean Andrews, portrayed in the JFK movie by John Candy eloquently. I am advised by the FBI that you told them that Lee Harvey Oswald came into your office sometime during the summer of 1963. Would you tell us in your own words just what happened as far as that was concerned? Now, I don't recall the dates, but briefly, it was this. Oswald came into the office accompanied by some gay kids. Oswald came into my office accompanied by some gay kids, and they were Mexicanos. They wanted to find out what could be done in connection with a discharge, a yellow paper discharge, so I explained to him he would have to advance the funds to transcribe whatever records they had up in the adjunct general's office. When he brought the money, I would do the work, and when we saw him 3 or 4 times subsequent to that, not in the company of the gay kids, he had this Mexicano with him. I assume he's a Mex because the Latins do not wear a butch haircut. Now, the first time he came in, he was with these Mexicans. And there were also some gay kids. By that, of course, you mean people who appear to be homosexuals. Well, yeah, they swish. You know, they swish. What they are, I don't know. We call them the gay kids. They swish. Had you ever seen any of these kids before? None of them. Have you ever seen any of them since? Since the first time they came in? Since the first time they came in? Yeah. You have? Yeah. Did they ever come back with Oswald? No. Mexicanos came back. Where did you see these gay kids after the first time? First District Precinct. Police picked them up for wearing clothes of the opposite sex. Wearing clothes of the opposite sex. Well, how many of them were there? About 50. 50? 50 gay kids. About 50. They weren't all with Oswald, were they? No. Oswald, you see, they made what they call a scoop and they put them all in the pokey. I went down for the ones I represented. They were holding them in the pavilion. I paroled them and got them out. You do represent from time to time some of these gay kids, is that correct? Yeah. You say these gay kids, that you saw them the time that the police arrested this large group of 50 gay kids wearing clothes of the opposite sex. They were the ones that you'd seen with Oswald? Yeah. And were you able to identify them? No. You see, they would just, you don't open files on them, you see? We mark them as what we call a working file. We make a few notes and put them in the general week's work, and if you come back to the office, it's retained, but we make a permanent file, but these kids, they come and go like, After Oswald's initial contact, I don't think he had come back with this Mexicano one more time. And how many times did he come into your office? Well, minimum of 3, maximum of 5. Counting the initial visit, of course. And did you talk about the different subjects at different times? As I understand it, first time he came there, he was primarily concerned about his discharge. Well, I might have had the subject matter of the visits reversed because of the company he kept in the conversation. He could talk fairly well. I figured that this was another one of what we call in my office free alley clients, free alley. We didn't maintain the normalcy with that kind of file. Might have scratched a few notes on a piece of paper and 2 days later threw the whole thing away. Didn't pay too much attention to him. Only one time I paid attention to this boy. He was out in front of the Maison Blanchard building giving out those Cookie Castro things. He was handing out those Cookie Castro flies. Did he tell you he's getting paid out to hand out these Cookie Castro flyers? Yeah. Did he say how much? No. And he was handing out these leaflets. Yeah, they were black and white pamphlets extolling the virtues of Castro, and which around here doesn't do too good. They had a lot of guys, Mexicanos, Cubans, that will tear your head off if they hear you fooling around with those things. What were they like? Oh, just pamphlets, single sheets, Just one sheet? Was it color? Were the pamphlets in color, or was it black and white? White paper offset with black. Was it yellow? I don't know, I'm colorblind. I wouldn't know, but thing is, they was black and white. You're colorblind? Yeah, I'm colorblind. Most of them wanted it around here. You give it to them, the people look at it, they drop it, you know. How far is this from the International Trade Mart? Well, that depends on what route you take. It could be 6 blocks, or 4 blocks, or 2 blocks. Was there a time after the assassination in which you had some further involvement with Oswald, or what at least was an apparent involvement with Oswald? Nah, nothing with Oswald. I was at the Hotel DU, and the phone rang, and a voice I recognized as Clay Bertrand asked me if I would go to Dallas and Houston. I think Dallas, I guess. Wherever it was, this boy was being held and defend him. I told him I was sick in the hospital and I couldn't go. You told him you were sick in the hospital and what? Well, that's where the call came through. It came through with the hospital switchboard. I said I was in rough shape enough to go to Dallas and defend him, and I would see what I can do. Now, what can you tell us about this Clay Bertrand? Have you met him prior? Yeah, I seen this Clay Bertrand one time, some time ago, probably a couple years ago. He's one calls on behalf of the gay kids normally, either to obtain a bond or parole for them. I would assume that he's one that originally sent Oswald and the gay kids, you know, those Mexicanos, to the office, because I had never seen those people before at all. They're just walk-ins. You say that you never saw Clay Bertrand sometime about 2 years prior to the time you received this telephone call and that you just told us about. Yeah, mostly a voice on the phone. And what did you receive on the phone call from Clay Bertrand asking you to defend Oswald? I don't remember. It was a Friday, a Saturday. Immediately following the assassination? I don't know. Yes, I did. I guess I did, because I was all squirrely in the hospital. You know, I was pumped up on morphine. You had pneumonia, is that right? Yeah. And as I understand it, you were under heavy sedation at the time in connection with your treatment for pneumonia. Yeah, that's what happened. After I got the call, I called my secretary at her home and asked her if she remembered this Lee Harvey Oswald. Of course, she didn't remember, and I had to tell her about all those kooky kids. She said we have a file in the office. I would assume that he would have had called subsequent to this boy's arrest. I'm pretty sure it was before the assassination. I don't know. You don't mean before the assassination? Don't you mean before Oswald? But after the assassination? Before? After? Before? After? After Oswald's arrest. Prior to his death? His death. Now, my recollection from reviewing reports is that the FBI they first advised the FBI of this, telling them that you recall that Clay Bertrand had called you sometime between 6 and 9 in the evening and spoke to you about this matter. Do you remember calling the FBI about that? Yeah, I do remember speaking to them. The exact words I do not, but that's probably correct. And was Bertrand ever in the office with Oswald? Now that I do not remember. I have no recollection. Do you have a picture in your mind of this Clay Bertrand? Oh, I ran on that rat about 6 weeks ago and he got spooked, ran in the street. I could have beat him with a chain if I caught him. Let me ask you this. When I was down here in April, before I talked to you this evening, I was going to take your deposition at that time, but we didn't make arrangements in continuing discussions with the FBI, and you finally came to the conclusion that Clay Bertrand was just a figment of your imagination? That's what the Phoebes put on it. I know that the two Phoebes are going to put these people on the street looking, and I can't find the guy, and I'm not going to tie up all these agents on something that isn't that solid. I told them, write what you want, that I'm nuts. I don't care. They were running on time factor, and the hills were shook up a plenty to get it. Just get it. And I couldn't give it to them. I have been playing the cops and robbers with them, and I can tell when the steam is on. They are on you like the plague. They never leave. They're like cancer. Eternal. And that was the description of the situation. It was my decision if they were to stay there. If I decide yes, they stay. If I decide no, they go. So I told them, close your file and go someplace else. That's the real reason why it was done. And I don't know what they wrote in that report, but that's the real reason. Now, subsequent to that time, however, you actually ran into Clay Bertrand in the street? Yeah, about 6 weeks ago. I'm trying to think of the name of this bar. That's where this rascal bums out. I was trying to get past him so I could get a nickel in the phone and call the Phoebes. But he saw me and he spooked and ran. I haven't seen him since. And did you talk to him that day? No. If I got close enough to talk to him, I probably would have grabbed him. Does Bertrand owe you money? Oh, yeah. I ain't looking for him for that. I want to find out why he called me on behalf of this boy after the president was assassinated. How come Bertrand owes you money? I have done some legal work that he has failed to pay the office for. And when was that? Well, that's in a period of years that I have, like, you were Bertrand, right? And you call up and ask me to go down and get Mr. X out, and if Mr. X don't pay on time, those kind of calls. Bertrand has a guarantee for the payment of appearance. One or two of these gay kids had skipped payment, and I go to pay the penalty, which was a lot of trouble. You were going to hold Bertrand for that? Oh, yeah. Did Oswald appear to you to be gay? Well, you can't tell. I couldn't say. He swang with the kids. He didn't swish, you know. The birds of a feather flock together, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know any squares that run with them, you know. They may go down to look, but... What's up, Lucas? Now, when you say he didn't swish, what do you mean by that? Well, he's not a feminine. He don't have one of them squeaky voiced. He ain't one of them squeaky voiced fags now. He didn't walk like or talk like a girl. He talks like a man. He don't swish, you know? Did you notice anything about the way he carried himself or the way he walked? Was there anything striking? Well, I never paid attention. I'd never watched him walk other than into and out of the office, and there's nothing that would draw my attention to anything out of the ordinary, but I just assumed he would knew these people and was running with them. They had no reason to come. These three gay kids he was just with, they were ostentatious. They were what we call swishers. They just walk. You can just look at them. All they had to do was open their mouth, and that's it. Walk and talk. They swing better than Sammy K. They do real good. With these pronounced ones, you never know what kind of relationship is with anybody else, with any of them. But I know I have a way of telling whether he's gay or not. other than he came in with what we call queens. That's about it. Came in with what we call queens and some gay Mexicanos. Have you ever... you've never seen any of these people since, or the first day that you came into the office with Oswald, that first day when you saw them down in the police station. Oh, those 3 queens? Those 3 gay boys? Nah, no, I've never seen them. There's 3 of them? Yeah, Latin type. Mexicanos will crop their hair and the Latin won't, so I assume he's a Mex. Whoa, it's a lot to unpack. Yeah, welcome, Lucas R. You came just in time. We're talking about the Swishes. The Swishes. So Lee Harvey Oswald is hanging out with the Swishes. And this ain't no conspiracy. This is in the Warren Commission. This is in the official government-sanctioned version of events. Dean Andrew talking about Lee Harvey Oswald with the gay Mexicano kids and the Cubano Swishes. What? What is going on? Now, you might have picked up that there's this mysterious cat known as Clay Bertrand who is calling on the phone telling Dean Andrews while he's all hopped up on morphine that he's to go down to Dallas and go represent Oswald after he's been, breaking out these gay kids. Doing a little work for this mysterious Clay Bertrand, breaking out his gay kids who aren't paying him back. So he's got a bone to pick with that. And Jim Garrison, District Attorney Jim Garrison, who's looking in, he's centered in on a figure. He thinks he knows who Clay Bertrand is. He's centered in on local business industrial magnate and rampant homosexual Clay Shaw. Clay Shaw. And that's how we get to the Clay Shaw trial. Now, Garrison's theory is that Clay Shaw has been the one masterminding this gay trafficking going on with the gay Cubano Mexicanos being broken out by Dean Andrew, and he's paying over the phone with a fake identity, but all we got to go on is this jive-talking lawyer, this jive-talking attorney with a fanciful story about he's knocked out on morphine. So, it's a tall tale, and it's an interesting one, but is there any credibility to it? Or is Dean Andrews an unreliable witness in a series of unreliable witnesses?
Garrison has based his case on a certainty that he can prove Clay Shaw is Clay or Clem Bertrand. The name Clem Bertrand was first introduced by a lawyer named Dean Andrews, who told the Warren Commission a person by that name telephoned him suggesting he provide legal defense for Lee Oswald. 3 years later, Garrison suggested to Andrews that Andrews identify Shaw as Bertrand. Andrews said he told Garrison he wouldn't say if Shaw was or was not Clay Bertrand.
The same as Clay Shaw. You say I identified him. I don't know if I did or I did not.
Since then, Garrison has taken his former friend, Dean Andrews, before the grand jury where he's been indicted for perjury. Before that happened, Andrews talked with us.
Man, I wouldn't know Clay Shaw if I fell across him on the street dead.
Has the occasion arisen for you to listen to Clay Shaw's voice?
Since all this popped up, they had him on TV, so I just shut my eyes and listened to the voice, and that's not the voice.
In other words, you're saying that Clay Bertrand is not Clay Shaw?
I'm saying that the voice of Clay Shaw is not the voice that I identify as Clay Bertrand.
All right, now you have seen Clay Bertrand on 2 occasions.
2 times.
You have seen Clay Shaw's picture in the newspaper?
Since this happened, many times.
Okay. Can you say positively that The person you knew as Clay Bertrand is not the person you have seen as Clay Shaw?
Scout's honor, he is not.
Now, did Mr. Garrison at one point ask you about certain operations across Lake Pontchartrain?
Across the lake. Yes, I think we'll discuss that.
Did he ask you if you knew any of the people involved?
I think he did.
What'd you tell him?
Manny Garcia Gonzalez and Ricardo Davis.
Did you know Mr. Gonzalez?
No.
Did you know Mr. Davis?
No.
Where did you get those names?
Out the air.
In other words, these names were fictional as far as you were concerned?
Well, I'm trying to see if his cat's kosher, you know.
So what?
So he's kosher, I don't know.
So you just picked two names out of the air?
Right.
Now, why did you do that?
Well, I don't know what he's up to. He's picking me like chicken, shucking me like corn, stewing me like an oyster. I mean, he ain't put nothing down but air. So I give him two names, see which way he's going.
In other words, you made up two names to see what he was going to do with them.
Right.
What did he do with them?
Well, I don't know. Hasn't done anything yet.
Well, have you had any occasion to have him talk to you about either of those names since then?
About 2 weeks ago on a Saturday, we talking, and he picks up a weapon with an item number on it.
What kind of a weapon?
Pistol. Semi-automatic. Black. Probably 7.6 millimeter. I didn't examine it. And says that Manny Garcia Gonzalez in Miami or someplace down there got busted for carrying a concealed weapon. And I told him Manny Garcia Gonzalez was never busted in his life. I didn't believe it. He put the weapon back down. We talked some more. And that was it. I left.
Did he tell you this was a gun taken from this man?
From Emmanuel Garcia Gonzalez. Now, I don't know if the Emmanuel Garcia Gonzalez he's talking about is for real, or if the Manny Garcia Gonzalez is the name that I pulled out of the air. This I cannot say.
What was your conclusion from that conversation?
Well, if it's the Manuel Garcia Gonzalez that I told him, he's got the right ta-ta, but the wrong ho-ho.
We know that Manuel Garcia Gonzalez has not been questioned.
We know that Manuel Garcia is a name that he literally just made up. Because he's feeding Garrison a line of bullshit too, making up names. What's up, D-Rec? What's up, everybody? So let's unpack where we're at. Dean Andrews is in the Warren Commission saying, yeah, you know, I occasionally bust out these gay kids on behalf of a mysterious Clay Bertrand. One day, Lee Harvey Oswald comes into my office, got some discharge papers, hanging out with these gay kids. You know, they swish, you know, effeminate types, you know. And they swishing, they swishing, they swashing. They swishing, they swash. And Jim Garrison, who knows Dean Andrews, is like, Dean, what the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you talking about? You're in the Warren Commission talking about you're going to represent Oswald in Dallas because this mysterious Clay Bertrand told you to. Because Oswald is there with these gay kids. What the fuck are you talking about, Dean? And if you don't tell me the truth, Dino boy, Deanie boy, Dino, I'm gonna put you on the stand. And if you don't tell the truth, I'm gonna try you for perjury, Dean. You hear what I'm saying, you fat motherfucker? So Garrison does a little digging. Who is this mysterious Clay Bertrand, right? That's the key to this investigation into the homosexual underworld, right? So Jim Garrison and his attorneys do a little digging, a lot of digging.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Especially in the homosexual underworld. They've come to the conclusion that Clay Bertrand is simply an alias for Clay Shaw, a businessman who served in the U.S. Army during World War II and was decorated by 3 nations, the U.S., France, and Belgium. And after World War II, Shaw helped establish the International Trade Mart in New Orleans, which facilitated in the sales of both domestic and imported goods. And wow, the International Trade Mart. That's where Lee Harvey Oswald was handing out his kooky Castro flyers and getting into fights with Carlos Bringay. Interesting. Now, Clay Shaw, international businessman with a history in military, decorated by 3 different nations, who establishes the International Trade Mart in the French Quarter of New Orleans, is also known as an established published playwright, and his among his works are 1929's Submerged, which had a group of sailors trapped in a submerged, sinking submarine. Where certain feelings and emotions revealed themselves underneath the surface, so to speak. You see what you see? Clay Shaw. Who's Clay Shaw? Well, he's a prominent international businessman and open homosexual in the New Orleans community. Here he is at a party. Now, some researchers will tell you that this fellow in the trench coat is David Ferry. Now, I will admit he does have a kind of fairy-ish quality. But it is more or less been established that is not David Ferry, that is in fact some obscure New Orleans radio personality whose name escapes me at the moment. But that fellow who's kneeling with a wiener in his hand, he has a wiener in his hand, in a little cowboy hat, a little cute cowboy hat. This is taken at the home of actor Wynn Pierce. That's Wynn Pierce holding that little wiener in his hands with his little cowboy hat. So there's another thread to pull on, and that's Clay Shaw in the back. And there's Clay Shaw doing. He's this one. He's third from the left. He's this one in this fop wig. I don't know what's going on here, but that's not David Ferry either. But something's going on here. Because there's Clay Shaw. International businessman Clay Shaw at Mardi Gras, dressed like a a gladiatorial centurion with no pants on, no pants whatsoever. But spirit, what you saying? A man can't walk around with no pants in New Orleans on Mardi Gras. It ain't against the law for Clay Shaw to walk around with no pants on. No. But here's Clay Shaw at another Mardi Gras, hanging out with another man with no draws, some transparent draws, I might say. Some see-through draws for Clay Shaw. Oh yeah. Turns out, an FBI memorandum said that the FBI received reports in 1954, in 1964, and then 1967, so spanning a period of 13 years that Clay Shaw was a homosexual, you don't say. And in 1964, one informant tattled that he had had sex with Shaw and described him as a brilliant and powerful man, given to sadism and masochism in homosexual activities. Chains, 5 whips, ropes, black robes, and several other leather strips, cat o' nine tails, and marble statues of penises. Marble statues of penises were all found in the upstairs bedroom of Shaw's home when detectives came for him during his arrest. I also heard an anecdotal story, and I don't know how true it is, that when they came to arrest Clay Shaw, he was partying it up with 2 African-American young gentlemen who were all buck naked and having some gay old times with a Coke bottle. Again, anecdotal, I don't know if that's true or not. But I have heard that. But the thing that astonished former Assistant District Attorney William Alford the most was 2 very large hooks mounted on a white beam on the bedroom ceiling, and you could clearly see to the side of each hook was full handprints on the white surface. They were significant enough that you could tell that many hands had been next to those hooks. Oh boy, and Clay Shaw and his New Orleans high society and media friends and literary friends countered these exotic items were merely Mardi Gras costumes. That, while likely this was true in all cases, the certain items, this still doesn't account for the hooks and the leather straps, nor does it explain why the whips had on them what appeared to be dried blood. And if they were also Mardi Gras costumes, Shaw himself remarked that such garb exposed an inner truth. Quote, Clay Shaw, are you ready for this? On Mardi Gras, it's the day we mask up and reveal our true selves. The day we mask up and reveal our true selves. And when Clay Shaw was booked after his arrest, the booking officer was a 15-year veteran of the force named Aloysius Habagost. And when the officer routinely asked if Shaw had ever used an alias, Shaw, apparently disheveled, replied with the words, Clay Bertrand Habagost. Without looking at any other documents, typed this on the booking card, which Shaw then signed. The alias also appeared on the arrest record. And here it is. Here it is, guys. That's Clay Shaw's fingerprint and booking card with alias Clay Bertrand, Clay Laverne Shaw, alias Clay Bertrand. But What if I were to tell you that during the trial, when Aloysius Habagast came to testify about Clay Shaw giving his alias as Clay Bertrand, the jury was excused from the courtroom and never heard this evidence? What if I were to tell you that? What if I were to tell you that the reason that Clay Shaw would pick this particular moniker is likely because it derives from Pope Clement V. Pope Clement V. You see, Clay Shaw, Clay was running a little secret society of his own called the Clement Bertrand Society, which helped out homosexual youths. And the likely reason that he used this moniker was deriving from Pope Clement V. Pope Clement V, whose surname was Bertrand de Agal, and it would also explain why in some instances he used the first name Clem. This pope sheltered homosexuals in the 14th century. You don't say! A pope sheltering sexual deviants? I never heard of such a thing. Pope Clement V was sheltering homosexuals in the 14th century, and his legacy lived on in the cloistered homosexual community, and so much that there developed Clement Bertrand Society, which helped homosexuals with legal problems, and that Shaw and / Bertrand sent the gay Latins to Dean Andrews. Suggests that he was aware of this bit of history of Pope Clement V harboring homosexuals. By the way, Pope Clement V also just happens to be the Pope who issued an order to disband the Knights Templar when Pope Clement issued the papal bull Pastoralis Pereminente Tappa on November the 22nd, 1307. Oh, just November 22nd, the same day that JFK got fucking killed. Because you can't make that shit up.
Weird.
What? November the 22nd, when Pope Clement V issued an order that instructed all Christian monarchs in Europe to arrest the Knights Templar and seize their assets. You can't make this shit up. So who is Clay Shaw really? Who?
Mr. Shaw, before the district attorney's men came here and arrested you, had you any idea that anything like this was planned, that Mr. Garrison was after you or anything like that?
None whatsoever. No idea.
What are your general feelings about the case now?
Well, you understand I'm constrained by court order not to discuss the case as such. I can say to you that as I said before, I am completely innocent. I have no knowledge of any conspiracy whatsoever to kill President Kennedy or anyone else.
What are your personal feelings about President Kennedy? What were they when he was alive?
I admired him very much. I felt that he had brought a new vigor, a new approach to the presidency, which struck me as being one that would produce very fine and fruitful results in the years ahead. I think his death was a tragedy in the sense that what would have come from his efforts was cut off.
Mr. Garrison's talked a lot about right-wingers in this case. What are your personal political views?
Well, I think I could describe myself best probably as a Wilsonian FDR liberal. I believe very thoroughly in the progressive ideas that these two presidents put forth, and I think that Mr. Kennedy actually was a kind of lineal descendant in his approach to the problems of our country.
You have never yourself had any CIA connection?
None whatsoever.
Any association with the organization?
No, none. You must either believe that the Warren Commission is substantially correct and that a lone assassin got a lucky shot at the president, or you must conceive of conspiracy so vast as to boggle the imagination. If indeed there were a conspiracy, it could not have been a small one. It would have had to involve the Dallas police force, the doctors at Parkland Hospital, the doctors at Bethesda Hospital, the FBI, the Secret Service, some members of the Department of Justice, the Attorney General and his chief aides, and possibly even the White House. Now, I cannot accept the fact that such a conspiracy did exist. First of all, because I think it would have been almost impossible to arrange a conspiracy with this literally thousands of characters. And had it been done, in the 4 years intervening, there certainly would have been someone who would have come forward to tell the truth. A deathbed confession, what you will, over a period of 4 years.
Did you yourself ever know Oswald or David Ferry?
Never knew either one of them, no.
You never even saw them or came into contact with them?
No.
So Garrison's hanging his hat, in this case, a lot on David Ferry. A lot on the word of David Ferry. Wouldn't you know it? Wouldn't you know it? Right before, right after, I should say, all of this news that Garrison is looking into this gets out on February 22nd, 1967, less than a week after the now defunct afternoon newspaper New Orleans States broke the story of Garrison's investigation. Ferry was found dead in his apartment, and 2 unsigned, undated typed letters were found. The first, in a pile of papers, was screed about the justice system, beginning with, "To leave this life for me is a sweet prospect," and the second note was written to Al Boboof, Ferry's friend, to whom he bequeathed all his possessions. And Garrison said that he considered Ferry's death a suicide, but added, "I'm not ruling out murder." Garrison's aide stated that Ferry telephoned him a day after the story of Garrison's investigation broke and told him, "You know what this story does. You know what it does to me, don't you? I'm a dead man. From here on, believe me, I'm a dead man." Ferry's autopsy concluded that there was no evidence of suicide or murder, and that Ferry died of a massive cerebral hemorrhage. And upon learning of the coroner's findings, Garrison said, "I suppose it could just be a weird coincidence that the night Ferry penned 2 suicide notes, he died of natural causes." Now look. It's all very suspicious. It's all very suspicious that the key witness in Jim Garrison's investigation just happens to die. This very interesting deviant cat that we know as David Ferry just happens to bite the bullet as the news of this investigation into Clay Shaw, alias Clay Bertrand, breaks. But, let's be real here. Let's be real. It's all very weird. But I'm not ruling out the fact that David Ferry is a paranoid, schizophrenic motherfucker, and I don't rule out the fact that he offed himself when the heat was getting hot. I'm not ruling that out. It's all very weird, but here's something weird. What was the last thing that David Ferry was reading before he left this mortal coil? What was the last thing that David Ferry read before he hung up his dirty pants on his chair and went to sleep forevermore? What was he reading? Well, it might interest you to know that he was reading a copy of Inquest, the Warren Commission, and the Establishment of Truth by Edward J. Epstein. Edward J. Epstein, who just happens to have a friendship with notorious pedophile Jeffrey Epstein, and said that he was the poster boy for rehabilitation because you can't make this shit up. The last thing that David Ferry read was Inquest by Edward J. Epstein. Is one of the murderers of JFK still on the loose? So it's all very possible. David Ferry took his own life. Or was he murdered? We'll never know, but it's all very weird.
Weird.
Nevertheless, Garrison's got to proceed on with his case against Clay Shaw, Clay Bertrand, the homosexual underworld. Even in the absence of David Ferry, something must be done.
I think that in order to stop any speculation or to deal with the possibility that there's going to be speculation about some connection between Ferry's death and this performance that Mr. Garrison is putting on down in New Orleans, that Mr. Garrison ought now to indicate in a forthright public statement just exactly what Mr. Ferry contributed to this investigation, in quotes, that he's conducting. And I note from one of these wire service releases here that Ferry himself called Garrison's probe, quote, a big joke, unquote. And I think Mr. Garrison ought to tell us exactly what connection Mr. Ferry has with this and tell us very clearly so that we don't have to get involved in speculation as to whether he's found anything more out about Ferry or not.
You feel then that there's absolutely no foundation to the stories or the investigation which Mr. Garrison is conducting in New Orleans?
I'll say this for sure. On the basis of the FBI reports that we examined about Ferry at the time, and the FBI conducted a thorough investigation of any possible involvement of this man, there was absolutely no reason to believe that there was any connection between Mr. Ferry and the assassination of the president. And I've seen nothing that would lead me to change my mind. If Mr. Garrison's got something that would change those facts, then we ought to know about it. And we ought to know about it right now.
And learn about they did. That's Wesley Liebler, the assistant attorney to the Warren Commission who interviewed Dean Andrews. That's the guy who was interviewing him. The weird that Jim Garrison's key witness, David Ferry, bites the bullet right as the news of his investigation breaks. But nevertheless, Jim Garrison's got another lead. He's got this guy, Perry Raymond Russo. Perry Raymond Russo came forward after his friend David Ferry died. His friend David Ferry died, and while being investigated by Jim Garrison in regard to JFK's death, Perry Russo came forward to Jim Garrison, and in 4 television and newspaper interviews, Russo stated that he gave and talked in length about David Ferry and said that Ferry had told him about a month before the assassination, quote, "We're gonna get him and it won't be long." And on another occasion he said, quote, "You know, we can get Kennedy if we want him." And Russo said nothing about Oswald Shaw or a conspiracy when the television reporter asked him on February 24th if Ferry had ever mentioned Oswald's name. Russo said, "No, I've never heard of Oswald until television coverage of the assassination." However, when Perry Russo was interviewed by Garrison's office on February 27th, Russo described a roommate of Ferry's in New Orleans as having a sort of dirty blonde and husky beard, a typical beatnik. Extremely dirty, a dirty boy. A dirty beatnik boy named Leon Oswald. Well, only dirty blonde beatnik boy I know hanging out in New Orleans around that time, who kind of might be impersonating Lee Harvey Oswald, is Carrie Thornley. Carrie Thornley of blonde hair beatnik. Now you've got to check out the other stream that we did about Carrie Thornley to learn more about him. But that's how Carrie Thornley gets subpoenaed by Jim Garrison. Following is some dirty blonde beatnik who looks like Oswald, who may be a roommate of Ferry's, was hanging out. And when shown a picture of Shaw, Perry Russo said he saw him and Ferry in a car talking at a service station, and when Russo said nothing about Shaw, Oswald conspiring with Ferry to, but still Russo said nothing about Shaw or Oswald conspiring with Ferry to murder Kennedy. Russo added that if he were hypnotized, I might recall a little bit more about the names and places and dates. And so Jim Garrison arranged for Perry Russo to be interrogated 3 times while hypnotized. And the first time was under an injection of sodium pentothal known as truth serum, and Russo was described a conspiracy plot in which Shaw, who used the alias Bertrand, and a rifle-toting Leon Oswald at Ferry's apartment with Rousseau. In September of '63, and Rousseau said Ferry told him, "We are gonna kill JFK and it won't be long." So, let's be real. Perry Rousseau is a rent boy. Is he a rent boy? And I think you know what Jim Garrison dug up Perry Rousseau.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Right, he's trolling through the homosexual underworld, and he's got this gay rent boy Perry Rousseau, who's got this tall tale to tell under sodium pentothal. So what do you believe?
In late September or during October, months right prior to the Kennedy assassination in November, Dave Ferry had occasion to come over the house on several instances, and I went to his place in just passing, and he made specific references that, in talking about Kennedy, he said, "We will get him, and it won't be very long." Now, the last time I can remember him saying that was sometime in October, but he was obsessed with that idea.
Did he ever mention Lee Harvey Oswald's name?
No.
No conversation at all about it?
No, I had never heard of Oswald until the television assassination.
Why have you never said anything about this before? Didn't it strike you that it might have some connection?
When the assassination, of course, caught me by surprise and caught everyone else, I would guess, when it finally was over and a Warren Commission was set up, and it tended to go and examine all of the details, and it made claims that it was going to do everything extensively. Then I left it to the professionals, and they were supposed to come out with a verdict. Then they came out with a verdict that Oswald was the only man, so I forgot it. Then Garrison began his probe, and subsequently got in the newspapers in New Orleans, and then later on television everywhere. And in that probe, he said that there was a conspiracy, and he could prove it. It still didn't ring a bell anywhere along the line. It was far from me that I would have, ever have met a person who would have been a conspirator to kill the President of the United States. Thereafter, when Dave Ferry died, the name, I still doubted if it was the same guy. They said, it's just another Dave Ferry. But when I saw his picture in the paper, then I knew it was the same man, and I had just as well say something to someone. And I wrote the district attorney the next day, and he should have gotten it Friday. And I saw the pictures this week.
You haven't talked with any federal agents or anybody from the Warren Commission about it?
No one's contacted me. Actually, the first time I made a remark about this was today, and to anyone in public.
Got a lot of secretive swishes. A lot of secretive swishes. The Shah's preliminary hearing on March 15th, 1967, Perry Rousseau repeated these claims that he made under hypnosis, and when asked under cross-examination why he had not gone to authorities 2 months after the alleged meeting when Kennedy was assassinated, Rousseau replied, "Well, I had an involvement with school, which was more pressing than the president getting killed." Rousseau named 2 witnesses who could corroborate his story of attending a party at David Ferry's apartment in which the assassination plot was made. The first, Rousseau's former girlfriend, appeared on NBC News program about Garrison investigation, and wouldn't you know it, she denied being at Ferry's apartment and claimed she'd never met David Ferry until 1965. And the second one, a friend of Rousseau's, told NBC News that he was at David Ferry's apartment, but saw nobody resembling Lee Harvey Oswald or Clay Shaw. And Rousseau failed 2 polygraph examinations ordered by Jim Garrison. Walter Sheridan, a former FBI agent and aide to Robert Kennedy, said, "In my conversations with Perry Russo, he has stated that his preliminary hearing testimony against Clay Shaw may be a combination of truth, fantasy, and lies. He says he wishes he had never gotten into this, but now he feels he has no choice but to go through with it, and said he's afraid if he changes his testimony that Garrison might indict him for perjury." And Russo said, "The hell with the truth, the hell with justice. You're asking me to sacrifice my life for Clay Shaw, and I won't do it." And at a press conference with Garrison the day after the NBC broadcast, Russo said of Sheridan, he was attempting to bribe him into changing his story and of alternating between promises and threats and seeking to help to wreck the Garrison investigation. NBC News denied these allegations, and Sheridan said that Russo had solicited offers from them. And the Washington Post reported on the story a week or two earlier that Russo solicited a bribe from them in order to divulge weaknesses in his testimony. So, Perry Russo, not the most reliable witness, but at the Shaw trial, Russo testified that several months before the assassination, he was at a party with Shaw and Lee Harvey Oswald and David Ferry, and they were talking about assassinating Kennedy, and Ferry was in control of the gathering. I'm sure the cum was flying that evening. They had porno films being projected on every fucking wall. They were doing that Cloud 9 uppers, and Ferry was there ranting about how he hated the president. And in '67, before the Clay Shaw trial began, NBC broadcast a documentary on the case in which Garrison defenders generally agree was an attempt to discredit the prosecutor. Sheridan appeared on the program and said, "In my conversations with Perry Russo, he has stated that his testimony against Clay Shaw may be a combination of truth, fantasy, and lies." And Russo again stated that Sheridan was not investigating any facts. His only purpose was, as he stated pointedly, he said, "I'm going to take Garrison out of this, and you're going down with him." Russo stated that Sheridan offered to relocate him, get him a job, and protect him from extradition. In exchange for that, Russo said Sheridan wanted him to retract his identification of Shaw and his testimony about the party attended by Shaw, Ferry, and Oswald. And Russo said an assassination plot was discussed. What Walter Sheridan was asking me to do was an absolute lie. Shaw was there, Ferry was there, Oswald was there. Who's to know? Perry Russo. Later in life, he's driving a cab. He says the Garrison's office had done a brainwashing job on him. But friends vouch for Perry Russo. Nevertheless, he's an unreliable witness that Garrison hangs his hat on. Gay rent boy Perry Russo with his conflicting narratives. And so it's no one's surprise that Clay Shaw claims he's innocent.
I'm shocked and dismayed at the charges which have been filed against me. I am completely innocent of any such charges. I have not conspired with anyone at any time or any place to murder our late and esteemed President John F. Kennedy or any other individual. I have always had only the highest and utmost respect and admiration for Mr. Kennedy. The charges filed against me have no foundation in fact or in law. I have not been apprised of the basis of these fantastic charges and assume that in due course I will be furnished with this information and will be afforded an opportunity to prove my innocence. I did not know Harvey Lee Oswald, nor did I ever see or talk with him or anyone who knew him at any time in my life. I visited Cuba twice before Castro came to power. When he came to power, I think I felt with a great many other people that it was high time there was a change in Cuba. And then I think after 2 or 3 months, I suffered the same disillusion that a great many people suffered, because it's the familiar pattern that has gone on for half a century. That is, there is a tyranny of the right, and then there is a freeing of this, and then you get a tyranny of the left. And it seemed to me unfortunate that this was what happened in Cuba.
We would like to hear from you exactly how you feel about facing this trial.
Well, gentlemen, with the help of my 3 attorneys, I have enough difficulty coping with reality these days. I cannot cope with rumor, after all, and the town is filled with rumors. That's true.
And tell them of your determination.
Well, of course, I'm looking forward to the trial. Of course, of course.
I've told them once before, you're healthy now, and we're going to keep you healthy, and you will remain healthy. God willing.
God willing, yes, of course. It's in the hands of God always. No one knows what tomorrow holds for them. But I expect to stand trial, and I expect to win. I have to be.
Keep you healthy with that chain smoking. This is 1967. An international businessman, Clay Shaw, weird, that he was doing business in pre-Castro Cuba. Weird. So with David Ferry no longer among the living, Perry Russo with his sodium pentatholed up crazy story, Jim Garrison goes ahead with his trial, and it's at this point I gotta talk a little bit about Jim Garrison. Let me talk about Jim Garrison for a minute, because I got something to say about Jim Garrison. Look, I wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be here, none of the Kennedy research crew would be here if it wasn't for Jim Garrison, the granddaddy of it all, and we use all of his records for all of the research that we do, so for that we owe him an eternal debt of gratitude. He's the OG. He's the one who started it all. However, Jim Garrison was a Democrat. Let's get that out of the way. He was a Democrat, and he came in with a lot of preconceived notions about this Kennedy assassination thingamajig, and what I call it is the boomer side of the JFK conspiracy community, which is 99% of it. The boomer theories, the boomer narratives that will not go the fuck away no matter how much time goes on. Kennedy wasn't trying to end the Fed, man. And let's get this out of the way, because this is the really big one that I hear a lot. Let's get this out of the way. Because this comes from the left. Like, when you see where it comes from, you see where it comes from, right? The narrative that LBJ and the CIA took out Kennedy because he was gonna pull out of Vietnam, man. And that's what your Oliver Stone JFK movie's all about, man. It's all just to support that idea, man, that JFK was gonna pull out of Nam, man. No, he was not. And as we're about to find out in this very program, there's a lot that Jim Garrison didn't get to, and there's a lot that Oliver Stone wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. If you want to know all the things that Jim Garrison and Oliver Stone didn't tell you about the JFK assassination, when people say, oh, but Spirit, it was 62 years ago, why are you still talking about it? There's nothing to uncover. It's not like the people who funded it are still alive or anything. Put a pin in that. But the boomer narratives that will not go away, that JFK was gonna pull out a Nam, man, and that LBJ contracted with the CIA to put a hit out on Kennedy. No. We gotta give Jim Garrison his due, but god damn it, he started that shit. He started that shit that the fascists killed JFK. Put a pin in that one too. The fascists killed JFK. That a fascist conspiracy of neo-Nazis killed JFK. A neo-Nazi fascist conspiracy. Put a pin in that.
Mr. Garrison, are you saying, in effect, that beginning with the assassination of President Kennedy, that there is a fascist plot to take over this country?
Well, let's put it in more adult terms, if we can. Let's put it this way. We have today close to 500,000 men in Southeast Asia, including combat troops. Prior to John Kennedy's death, we had no combat troops in Asia. The tremendous escalation began after his death. So I am saying that the invasion of Vietnam was a direct result of the death of John Kennedy. Now, to go on to the word fascism, I would describe the type of government into which we have evolved as essentially fascist, yes.
Mr. Garrison, are you saying that members of the Pentagon ordered the president killed because of his opposition to the war in Vietnam?
I would say that the fact that the military of the United States was behind the murder of John Kennedy is so obvious that most of the people in the United States have to be aware of it. Of course, the Pentagon and the Central Intelligence Agency were involved in the murder of John Kennedy, just as they were involved in the escalation in Vietnam which followed.
You mean direct involvement?
Of course.
Of course. You gotta trust District Attorney Mershise here. But, the media is out to discredit Jim Garrison. Even then, they're saying, you're ganging up on Clay Shaw because he's a gay man. Garrison saying that a homosexual ring killed Kennedy. What? He didn't actually say that the assassination of John F. Kennedy was a homosexual thrill killing, did he? No, he totally did. Because one of his assistant district attorneys brought some evidence of the Clay Shaw matter to a doctor, and as he examined it, he concluded that, as you suggested, it could very possibly have been rooted in a sadistic homosexual abnormality. So was the assassination of JFK a homosexual thrill killing? And it's not like anybody would make a circus out of this trial.
Critics of District Attorney Jim Garrison say that it will be more a three-ring circus than a trial at the criminal court building in Orleans Parish. But defenders of Garrison argue that he has a case, and a good one. The issue will be tested in a well-guarded courtroom. No one gets in without special passes. There are seats for 170 spectators. 14 countries will be represented, including the Soviet Union. Even closed-circuit television cameras have been installed for security reasons. One of the two principal actors in the drama is Jim Garrison, the district attorney, a flamboyant man his detractors call the Jolly Green Giant. Little is seen of him these days, not even in court. His last public appearance was in December. The other protagonist is Clay Shaw, a retired businessman and real estate dealer. 55 years old, a chain smoker, Shaw has consistently proclaimed his innocence. If he's convicted, he can get 1 to 20 years in jail. Finally, a key witness is Perry Russo. He testified at a preliminary hearing that he heard Shaw plotting with Lee Harvey Oswald and a man named David Ferry to kill President Kennedy. It happened, Russo said, during a party at Ferry's home in September of 1963, a party in the second-floor apartment. The state admitted Russo had been hypnotized before his testimony. The defense contended he was left with a post-hypnotic suggestion. Garrison charged Oswald and Ferry met again at a seawall off Lake Pontchartrain in the summer of 1963. Garrison's witness there was a man who admitted he was a dope addict, about to give himself a fix. The presiding judge is Edward Haggerty.
Good morning, Judge. Morning, Judge. Well, we hope we get him today so we can start the trial tomorrow. I think we will get him today.
Good.
Thank you.
For the next several weeks, the jury will live in a motel a mile from the courthouse. Forbidden newspapers or news programs, allowed only emergency calls home. Judge Haggerty...
A three-ring circus, you say? I don't know what would ever give you that impression. Oh, hey, Ruth. Settle down, boys. Settle down. Settle down. Oh, hey, Ruth. What you gotta say?
He says at noon until about 1:30, I think it is, and they go back in. Saturday sessions are a little unusual.
I see.
Did you ever know of Clay or Clem Bertrand when you knew the Oswalds?
You know, why don't you talk to me after I testify? Wouldn't that be better? You just don't hang around.
I'd like to ask you a few questions before you go in, if I might. Probably some of the same questions that they're going to ask you in there. Did you ever know or meet Clem or Clay Bertrand while you knew the Oswalds in either Texas or in New Orleans?
No.
Was your automobile parked at your home on the day that the president was shot? This has become an issue in the trial here.
Except the times I was in it. It was parked at my home, and I was in it to take my daughter to the dentist and pick up some things, do errands early in the morning.
Did Lee Harvey Oswald ever mention anything about a conspiracy or about meetings in New Orleans concerning President Kennedy?
No, certainly not.
We get one picture. Turn around this way. We get a little light a little better.
Settle down, boys.
We get the light a little better on your face looking back this way.
Oh, get a little light on that face, Ruth.
Maybe walk up.
Hate to see you leave, but love to watch you go. All right, settle down, boys. Settle down. Ruth Payne, everybody. Because, hey. It's the theme of the show. It's the theme of the show. Let's talk about the ladies of the LGBTQ JFK assassination plot. Because we all know, right, that Ruth Payne, while Lee Harvey Oswald was handing out his Cookie Castro flyers, Ruth Payne was writing non-stop letters to his Russian bride, trying to get her to live with her in Texas so that they could live together and dress the same. Are you seeing what I'm seeing in this photograph? They're dressing the same. So let's read a little letter. Let's read a little letter from Marina Oswald to Ruth Payne. Dear Ruth. Here I have already received 4 letters from you. 4 letters. 4 letters. Every day, 1. 4 days in a row. Every day, 4 days in a row, Ruth has written Marina, and there are no words to thank you and Michael for the thoughtfulness you show me. Now remember, Marina is estranged from her husband. Ruth is estranged from her husband. Ruth is trying to get Marina to come live with her now. Each thing in turn first. Thanks for the calcium, which I guessed only you could have sent. Somebody sent Marina calcium with no name on it. Must have been Ruth. As I found no return address or name on it, and I drink the yeast and calcium regularly. And besides that, Aunt Lillian gave me many vitamins, and as you see, I'm surrounded by much attention. Dear Ruth. Now, regarding your invitation to come and live with you for a rather long time, for me, of course, it's very tempting. Since besides all the conveniences, I could also learn English. Lee and I have not talked about it. I am afraid to talk to him about it, as I know he will be very hurt. While I was at your house, I wrote him about Philadelphia, that I could go there with you many times. He has recalled this matter to me and said that I am just waiting for an opportunity to hurt him. It has been the cause of many of our arguments. And as if we'd have enough of such, I don't care for any new ones. I'm very happy now, and for a considerable period, he's been good to me. He talks a lot about the coming baby and is impatient to have a son. Such an attitude on his part pleases me, even if it's only for the baby. He has no intention of baking it into a cake. And he's become much more attentive, and we hardly quarrel. True, I have to give in a great deal, but could not be otherwise, and if he wants peace, then it's necessary to give in. We went to the doctor. My condition is normal. I judge the baby is due. But it seems to me the baby will be due blah 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 woman talk. But we will see when it will be. Dear Ruth, a huge thank you to you and Michael for the invitation to live with you. I will try and take advantage of it. Things have really become worse if Lee becomes coarse with me again or treats me bad. Sweet Ruth, I am so thankful for you, for your good and sympathetic, kind heart, and wherever I will always be, wherever I am, I will always say that plain Americans are good, peaceful, and intelligent, and they're talented and sensitive people, and no doubt, all plain people are everywhere, and all people, all Americans who have surrounded me at times have showed me much consideration and goodwill, and I believe the impression that this has created in me about Americans is correct. I love your people in your country, and I thank you and all that you, all such good people. God grant me that there will always be peace and time. People would treat each other. Only so, if you see what emotions your invitation and your attitude towards me has evoked. Oh, it's your fault, haha. It's your fault, Ruth, for evoking such emotions in me, dear Ruth. Now, another question, if it's possible, if it becomes necessary for me to come live with you in order to say that I am the dependent of Michael, surely it would be necessary that I have an official divorce, isn't that so? But I think that Lee would not agree to a divorce, and I would go from him simply to become a burden to you, and that I don't wish. Surely Michael would need to have a paper showing that I am living at his expense, but no one would just take his word for it, right? For a time, that is all I will write about myself. Lee sends greetings, but he doesn't know about the content of your letters. He doesn't know, and I'm telling him that I wrote you about how he's treating me. P.S. Lee found out that right next to us there is a large hospital where maternity care costs blah 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 blah. PPPS SS. A huge gathering, and thanks to Michael, have you got the photographs? The photographs which you took in New Orleans. Stuff about the kids, but all is well. Dear Ruth. Dear Ruth. Now I have one more question while you're under oath, Mrs. Payne, because God, I love Ruth Payne, but Ruth, while I have you under oath, you always tell the same old story over and over and over and over again. Tell me once, tell me something I've never heard before. Just for once, Ruth. Just for funsies, tell me something I've never heard before. About you. Tell me, what was your particular interest in Russian? Why did you learn Russian? Remember, those letters between her and Marina are translated from Russian. Why did you learn Russian? Well, I guess I had just been interested in languages in general for a long time, and I studied some French in high school and college, and one time I worked at a Jewish community center who conducted their business in Yiddish, and I started to study Yiddish so I could understand what they were saying. I just enjoyed it. I couldn't say I had any end in view for the use of the language. I guess I just got started partly when I was working with a group of young Quakers, a national group of Quakers. We were just trying to do something to improve international relations, and we wanted to send a group of Quakers to the Soviet Union and bring back a group here. And we scoured the country and found one young Quaker who could speak the language, and just seemed too bad that there weren't more people trying. Would you say it's a rather difficult language? Yes, I would, and easy to forget. How did you learn Russian, Ruth? Why did you get interested in Russian, Ruth? Oh, I learned Yiddish at a Jewish community center. What? What? Put a pin in that. Put a pin in that. Thanks, Ruth. Thanks for telling me something I've never heard before. Oh boy, nevertheless, we gotta proceed on with this trial. There's a trial going on, and Dean Andrews is ready to defend himself on the stand against Jim Garrison's accusations against the Jolly Green Giant.
Said so.
Are you going to represent yourself?
Who could do it better than me?
You don't intend to get another attorney then?
No. I'm not going to trial. The Jolly Green Giant's going to trial. See you later, Gator.
Is he going to be the person on the stand?
He's going to trial. I'm not. You don't get the message.
But it turns out things didn't work out so well for Dean Andrews because due to inconsistencies in his testimony, he was found guilty of perjury and sentenced to 18 months in the pokey. Oh no!
The big loser in the case so far is Dean Andrews, a hippie-talking lawyer and assistant district attorney known as the Fat Man. He told the Warren Commission that the day Kennedy died, a man called Clay Bertrand asked him to represent Oswald. Garrison maintains Clay Bertrand is Clay Shaw. Andrews says he isn't, but because of conflict in his testimony, he got 18 months for perjury.
I'm not in a position to comment. I'm under closure because of a court order directing those persons involved, the principals that is, prohibiting comment on the case. To my right, or to the audience's left, is my chief counsel, John Dowling, and to his right is his associate counsel, Walter Kelly, and I would suggest that I turn the question over to my capable counselors.
That I sometimes wonder if the entire so-called assassination probe isn't a psychedelic reaction of a district attorney with an overstimulated imagination.
Dean Andrews, the unfortunate fat man who faces 18 months in a decaying parish prison. He dare not talk for the record, but, he said, come to Bourbon Street and I'll show you what I think of the case. The greatest lies are told in the name of truth. The greatest crimes are committed in the name of justice. The quotation is Jim Garrison's. It could be used for him or against him in this strange case. Good night.
folks. You can't make that kind of shit up. Dean Andrews got 18 months, but what if I told you, to nobody's surprise, it only took less than an hour for the jury to find Clay Shaw not guilty. That's right. Clay Shaw was found not guilty, but it doesn't end there, folks. Not by a long shot. Not by a long shot, because we're gonna go deeper than Jim Garrison, deeper than Oliver Stone ever went. What if I told you there's more? There's more. There's more that old Jim Garrison and his fascist plot to overthrow the government because of Vietnam, hanging his hat on unreliable witnesses, taking his fed disinformation. Look, Jim Garrison is a hero in the JFK assassination community. However, he couldn't have known. He couldn't have known all the things that we know now. We know more, right? Also, what happened to Jim Garrison, by the way? Well, upon re-election, he lost to District Attorney Harry Connick Sr. Harry Connick Sr. Now, does that name sound familiar to you? Harry Connick Sr.? Well, it should, because he's the father of singer Harry Connick Jr. Because we're making connections tonight, but that's just one of the many. This is one of the many Kennedy connections. Clay Shaw, let's talk about Clay Shaw. Let's talk about things that Jim Garrison never got to in his case against Clay Shaw. Now, for you see, Clay Shaw sat on the board of directors for an international corporation with an amazing name called Permindex. Permindex. Clay Shaw sat on the board of directors for Permindex, an organized, expert, modern, international business center located in Rome. All roads lead to Rome and to the World Trade Center of Permindex. Clay Shaw sat on the board of directors for Permindex. Don't doubt? Do you doubt me? Do you doubt me? Because I got the letter right here. Dear Mr. Clay Shaw, the chairman of our board, has written you informing you that you are officially appointed to our board. I got the letter from Central Mondale Commercial asking Clay Shaw to be appointed to their board, and I have the telegram from Clay Shaw to Central Mondale Commercial in Rome saying delighted to accept the membership to your board of directors. Write it, Clay Shaw. Wow, you can't get more solid a paper trail than that. So what is Central Mondale Commercial that Clay Shaw is appointed to the board of directors to? We're about to get spicy, people. Hang in there. Because Clay Shaw says, although I'm a member of the board of directors of Central Mondale Commercial, which is a Permindex subsidiary, I'm afraid I don't know too much about them. Fondly, Clay Shaw. Bullshit. Bull fucking shit. You sit on the board of directors for Central Mondale Commercial, which is a subsidiary of Permindex, and you accepted an invitation to their board of directors, but honestly, I don't know what they're doing. Bullshit. Bullshit. Want to know what Central Mondale Commercial is up to? Now, in March 4th, 1967, an Italian left-wing newspaper, Paese Sera, Now you have to remember this is coming from an Italian left-wing newspaper, so let's bear that in mind. So a left-wing Italian newspaper publishes a story alleging that Clay Shaw was arrested and charged with conspiring to assassinate JFK, blah, blah, blah. And his involvement in Centro Mondial Comercial, a subsidiary to Permindex, with which he was a board member, had been a front organization for the CIA, transferring funds to Italy for illegal political espionage activities, and had attempted to depose of French President Charles de Gaulle in the early 1960s. And on March 6th, the newspaper printed other allegations about individuals it said were connected to Permindex, including Louis Bloomfeld, who we'll look at, whom it described as an American agent who now plays the role of a businessman from Canada who established secret ties to Rome with deputies of the Christian Democrats and neo-fascist parties. So, left-wing Italian newspaper Paese Sera is alleging that Permindex is a neo-fascist front group for the CIA. Well, let's investigate, shall we? Is it a neo-fascist front group, as they allege? Let's find out. Who's sitting on the board of directors of Permindex? Louis Bloomfeld, you say. Louis Mortimer Bloomfeld, the son of Harry Bloomfeld, born in Canada, a Zionist. Bloomfeld joined the British military and served in British Mandate Palestine as an intelligence officer. And Bloomfeld was involved in training the Jewish army, the Haganah, and President FDR established the OSS in 1942, and Bloomfeld was recruited and given the rank of major. And in 1947, the OSS evolved into the CIA, and Bloomfeld continued doing contract work for the new organization. He was a regular visitor to Israel and met with Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion. David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel. Put a pin in it. A successful lawyer, he worked for years in a law firm in Montreal and was a major stockholder in Permindex, a corporation based in Switzerland. Bloomfeld served as president of Heineken Breweries in Canada and was also a major shareholder in Permindex. Bloomfeld was also an honorary consul general to the Republic of Liberia from 1962 until his death because of Liberian banks. And he's reported to have been active in Histadrut, Israel's organization of trade unions, for over 20 years. Histadrut, Israel's national trade union center, and represents the majority of Israel's trade unionists. And at the end of 1921, who was elected their secretary? David Ben-Gurion, the first Prime Minister of Israel. Oh, wow. Israel's trade union, you say. Louis Mortimer Bloomfeld was recruited into the SOE, the British organization formed to conduct espionage, sabotage, and reconnaissance in German-occupied Europe and aid local resistance movements during World War II. And he... after Churchill negotiated an agreement with FDR, allowing British intelligence to set up shop in the US to effectively merge its operations with those of the FBI and military intelligence. Under SOE commission, Bloomfeld was given an officer's rank in the U.S. Army and assigned to the newly created Office of Strategic Services, over the OSS, the wartime predecessor to the CIA. And as major in the OSS, Bloomfeld was detailed into the FBI investigation as contracting recruitment agent for its counter-espionage division 5, Blumfeld, described by numerous authors and associates as a practicing homosexual, developed a deeply personal friendship with FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover. I might also mention that he was a major stockholder in the Trans-Israel Pipeline, an oil pipeline running from the Red Sea to the Mediterranean Sea. And he was in favor of recognition of the People's Republic of China. Yeah, you can't make this shit up. He received an honorary degree at Hebrew University in 1973 and Bar Ilan University in 1984, and was recognized as an honorary citizen in Tel Aviv and in Winnipeg. And he has the Bromfield Center, the Bromfield Library, and the Bromfield Stadium in Tel Aviv are all named after him, and he died in Jerusalem. Wow. What a neo-fascist, am I right? Who else is on the board of Permindex? Well, it turns out a guy by the name of Tiber Rosenbaum. Great name. Who's Tiber Rosenbaum, you ask? Well, a Hungarian-born Swiss Jewish rabbi and businessman, and one of the heads of the Jewish community in Switzerland. During the Holocaust, Rosenbaum saved hundreds of Jews while being disguised as a German SS officer. That's Rosenbaum when he was a young man, and he was the Mossad before the Mossad ever existed. Let that sink in. He was disguising himself as a German SS officer to help Jews escape the Holocaust before the Mossad ever existed, and after the war, he was involved in extensive businesses relating to the economy of Israel and was instrumental in helping the new state of Israel with security issues and worked for the Mossad on intelligence matters. You don't say. And soon after the establishment of Israel, Mr. Rosenbaum started an organization called the Helvis Company to actively promote Israeli-Swiss trade. A decade later, Helvis was alleged to have given kickbacks into a special fund for the National Religious Party of Israel. The National Religious Party of Israel. Wow. A political party in Israel representing the religious Zionist movement. How neo-fascist! To obtain contracts with the Ministry of Health in connection with 2 hospitals near Tel Aviv. Together with his best friend Bernard Kornfeld, Rosenbaum founded the Banque de Crédit International Genevieve in Geneva in 1959, which went bankrupt in 1976. Rosenbaum originally financed arms purchases for Israel through the bank, where the major organized crime figure Meyer Lansky, because you can't make this shit up. Tiber Rosenbaum ran a bank that Meyer Lansky was funneling mafia money into. And Meyer Lansky first met Rosenbaum in 1965, and the bank also opened a connection to Israel. Sylvian Ferdman, who was BCI's office manager in Geneva, acted as money courier for Meyer Lansky, and the bank was responsible for handling up to 90% of Israeli Defense Ministry's arms purchases. 90%. So the bank, understand that the bank that Tiber Rosenbaum is running is where Meyer Lansky is funneling mafia money into to fund 90% of the Mossad's arms sales. 90%. Neo-fascism, right? And also, funny enough, his Wikipedia article neglects to mention that he's an ambassador to Liberia. Because why? Liberian banks. Wow, what neo-fascist connections in the Permindex, right? Who else sits on the board of Permindex? Well, have you ever heard of the Bronfman family? It comes from Yiddish, Bronfen, liquor, whiskey, or spirits, which is a cognate with German, Brandwein. In Germany, distilled spirits, or Dutch, Brandwein, which in English is brandy wine, i.e. brandy. In Afrikaans, Brandewijn. And in Yiddish, man coincidentally translates to spiritsman, referring to one who makes or sells whiskey. With the advent of Prohibition in Canada, Samuel Bronfman and his brothers turned their energy towards selling mail-order liquor. Following the government's crackdown on business, and the brothers took another route. As it was still legal to sell alcohol as medicine, the brothers rebranded their liquor with names like Liver and Kidney Cure, Dandy Brancer Liver, and Rockabye Cough Cure. Samuel Bronfman took control of the business after Prohibition came to an end in the U.S. and was known as Mr. Sam Bronfman. He founded Distillers Corporation Limited and purchased the Seagram Company, which became the world's largest liquor distilling firm. He was president of the Canadian Jewish Congress from 1939 to 1962, and the Bronfman Archaeology Wing of the Israel Museum in Jerusalem, Israel, is named after him. Wow, how neo-fascist, right? And his sons, Edgar Bronfman, worked for Seagram, eventually becoming president, treasurer, and CEO, and he was president of the World Jewish Congress. The World Jewish Congress, whose mission statement and main purpose is to act as the diplomatic arm of the Jewish people and to create a worldwide Jewish representative body based on the concept of unity of the Jewish people, democratically organized and able to act on matters of common concern. Edgar Bronfman, president of the World Jewish Congress, contributed to Soviet Jews being legally able to practice a religion as well as immigrate to Israel. And his brother, Charles Bronfman, still alive at 92 years old, still alive, one of the wealthiest people in the world. He founded Birthright, a program which provides a free educational travel experience to Israel for young Jewish adults. Bronfman is one of the principal donors, and since 1999, the program has sent more than 700,000 young Jews from around the world on a 10-day free trip to Israel. And in 1991, Bronfman with billionaire Leslie Wexner formed the Mega Group. What? The Mega Group was founded in 1991 by Les Wexner, former owner of L Brands and Victoria's Secret, and Charles Bronfman, and is said to have up to 50 members, including Hollywood director Steven Spielberg. It's a pro-Israel lobby group to influence U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East. The group is also said to have had contacts with Israeli intelligence agency Mossad and to have served as a base for intelligence operations in the U.S. and Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein is said to have used the group to build up his network of high-ranking contacts in business, media, and politics, and the billionaire Les Wexner was a major financial supporter of Jeffrey Epstein and later claimed to know nothing of his criminal activities. Neo-fascists. So Charles Bronfman starts the mega group with Les Wexner, who's bankrolling, Jeffrey Epstein. And he's linked to a scandal in '99 when he's revealed that funds that he donated to social causes were transferred into Ehud Barak's election campaign for Prime Minister of Israel. Bronfman also joined the Giving Pledge, an initiative of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Wow. There's a lot to unpack with the Bronfmans, and where have I heard that name before? Jeffrey Epstein, Les Wexner, the Bronfmans, sex cults, the homosexual underworld.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
How would JFK ever link up to something that's happening right now, right? How would it link up to anything that's happening in current events with the Bronfman family that's still around and sex cults? I don't know.
An heiress to the Seagram's fortune will spend the next 7 years behind bars for her role in the NXIVM sex cult case. She was sentenced today after pleading guilty to identity theft and immigration offenses. CBS 2's Andrea Grimes reports.
I just want my reputation back.
Barbara Boucher teared up outside Brooklyn Federal Court after giving one of several victim impact statements inside at the sentencing of Seagram's beverage fortune heiress, Claire Bronfman. A judge sentenced Bronfman to 81 months in prison, nearly 7 years, for her role on the executive board of NXIVM.
I was speechless, and I feel that this was justice served, and I think that Claire will take that very seriously.
NXIVM was originally billed as a self-help organization founded by Keith Raniere in Albany in 1998. But the judge pointed out it functioned as a pyramid scheme, and under it, Raniere later headed up a secret all-female society that essentially operated as a sex cult. The judge said while there's no evidence Bronfman directly participated in the sex operation, she used her wealth and social status to intimidate and pressure Raniere's critics and dissenters.
I think today sends a very, very strong message and hopefully some measure of peace and justice to the victims who suffered at the hands of this very corrupt enterprise.
Raniere was separately convicted of several charges, including sex trafficking. Her attorneys vowed to appeal her sentence.
The decision was clearly an abomination. It was outrageous. It was a miscarriage of justice to go 3 times above the sentencing guidelines.
Bronfman did apologize in court to the one victim her charges included, but the judge said he needed to consider her sentence in the context of the other defendants as well, including Raniere. Outside Brooklyn Federal Court, Andrea Grimes, CBS 2 News.
Wow. Interesting. Spirit. Why bother looking into the Kennedy assassination? It was 182 years ago. What relevance does it have to people living nowadays? It's just too complicated. You'll never unpack it. Not like starving autist who bought 2 coffees and said, "Hi, could you start over?" Just got here. Please and thank you. Well, thank you very much, starving autist. We'll start over from the beginning. You see, there's a lot of shady shit going on in New Orleans. But Clay Shaw is linked up to Permindex, and Permindex is linked up to Louis Bloomfeld, Tiber Rosenbaum, and the Bronfman family. Understand? These people are Israel, right? Tiber Rosenbaum is responsible for 90% of the arms sales to Israel. The Bronfman family are presidents of the World Jewish Congress, the lobby that influences a worldwide Jewish interest group. Neo-fascism is what I'm trying to say. I think you smell. You smell it? So there's a lot of Canadian Zionist Jews who have connections to Liberia, who might be connected to the JFK assassination. Maybe, tangentially, it's not like some guy saw some weirdo with painted on eyebrows in an airport in Canada.
On that fateful day in Dallas where a young president lost his life, the headlines reached around the globe. Winnipeg was no different, but certainly no one expected the search for answers to reach here.
I happen to sit at this table here.
Just a few months later, salesman Richard Giesbrecht was sitting in this lounge in Winnipeg's new airport. Waiting on a client, he was quickly distracted by a conversation at the next table.
And I happened to overhear these men discussing names like Oswald.
In this 1968 CBC interview, Giesbrecht says he heard two men discussing inside details of the Kennedy assassination. One, he said, appeared to be wearing a wig and false eyebrows.
It was clear to you that something sinister was going on?
Yes, these men weren't actors.
And my first reaction was, well, yeah, you know, people think they hear a lot of things.
In 1964, Don Newman was a young reporter in Winnipeg. He spoke with Giesbrecht after the FBI came to see him. Newman's story, first depicted in the Winnipeg Free Press and now in his memoirs, is chilling.
And while he's listening, he looks over and there's a big kind of hulking guy looking at him and trying to signal the people that are talking about the assassination that they're being overheard.
Giesbrecht claimed that man tailed him through the airport, blocking him from going to an RCMP office. He says he shook him loose in a flight lounge.
Oh, he was absolutely convinced, and he was really scared. I mean, he wasn't making this up.
The FBI didn't do anything, but 3 years later, a man with false eyebrows would surface.
Who you scared of, Dave?
Me? Everybody.
Prosecutor Jim Garrison, portrayed by Kevin Costner in the film JFK, suspected David Ferry knew of a conspiracy.
I knew Oswald. He was in my Civil Air Patrol unit.
Ferry was a pilot and associate of Lee Harvey Oswald. He wore wigs and false eyebrows to conceal a medical condition. He died before Garrison could prove anything. Giesbrecht recognized this picture in the Winnipeg Tribune as the man he saw at the airport.
I'm certain that there is a definite link now.
Giesbrecht was invited by Garrison to New Orleans to testify, but never did go. Around then, a lot of people connected to the Kennedy story were turning up dead.
Have you been threatened?
I'd rather not comment there.
Richard Giesbrecht died in Winnipeg in 1990. His story never fully proven, nor totally discounted. Today his family says his story died when he died. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
So what do you believe? What do you believe? I'll tell you what. It's just a theory. It's just a theory. It's just a theory, but if I were Canadian Jewish business magnates associated with Permindex, I'm just saying this is a theory that I might have a contact with Auguste Record, a French Corsican heroin trafficker and Nazi collaborator, and one of the founding members of the French Connection to smuggle heroin. Based in France, who was sentenced to death in absentia for his collaboration with the Nazis. I'm just saying, if I wanted plausible deniability of my role in the Kennedy assassination, I might use my connections with a French Corsican heroin trafficker who's already sentenced to death for his collaboration with Nazis. And then he would, you know, have a hitman that worked for him, who's a heroin trafficker, named Lucien Sarti, who was officially killed by Mexican police in Mexico on April 27, 1972, and his death was not reported to the US at the time. However, in France's leading newspaper, Le Monde, it was reported that the killing of Sarti was a result of a close mafia police narcotics bureau collaboration in the US to shatter Corsican influence in the worldwide narcotics traffic and to create a virtual monopoly of the US-Italian mafia connection whose key figure was Santos Traficante. I mean, this is all just a theory, mind you. But what you're really asking, because you don't care about specifics about who killed Kennedy. We're here to talk about Pride Month, right? And as we wind down this show, your main question is, Spirit, is there any evidence that JFK was a homosexual? Did JFK swish? Was he a swish? Well, it turns out that JFK had a lifelong friend, close friend, named Lem Billings, who is known for his lifetime friendship with JFK and the Kennedy family, and was known by Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. as his second son, and acted as an escort for several of the Kennedy women. Now, I'd surprise you to know that Lem Billings was a homosexual man. But he was friends with a young John Fitzgerald Kennedy, and they formed a club together and called themselves the Muckers. And the Muckers would pull pranks around school and even plan to dump horse manure in the school gym. Oh, what pranksters. What silly pranksters. Remembering JFK's bond with his boyhood best friend who never got over the assassination. Because of him, Lem Billings once said of JFK, "I was never lonely." Billings was a longtime friend of the Kennedy family, working to preserve the slain president's legacy even after death. But because of him, Billings once said, "I was never lonely. I was never lonely." As a younger man, he also served as something of a go-between. A go-between. For a young Jack Kennedy and a woman who would become his wife, Jackie Bouvier. He acted as something of a go-between, you know?
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Oh, shut up, Kevin Bacon. But even before then, Billings was a Kennedy fixture. It's believed that he was gay at a time when homosexuality was still illegal. Even though he was somewhat open about his sexuality, including within the powerful Kennedy clan, exemplifiers of the strength to the ties of his family. Traveling around Europe in the summer of 1937, Kennedy and Billings witnessed the rise of fascism, an experience that would shape JFK's views of the world and mark as the beginning of his break from his father's isolationism. You might say that a hidden dimension of JFK's character was unlocked. A hidden dimension, you say?
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Oh, a hidden dimension was unlocked by Billings. at a time when homosexuality was taboo, and Kennedy accepted and loved Billings, who he knew was gay. Because Kennedy was a progressive. He was ahead of the times. He was just a heterosexual friend with Lem Billings. He accepted him for who he was, despite the fact that he was gay in a time in which it was illegal. And the two grew so close that over the following months, Billings was invited to the Kennedy family home in Palm Beach, Florida for the holiday season, and months later to Hyannis Point compound, where he was badly burned in a defective shower and hospitalized there for 3 weeks. Oh no, Billings. Oh no, Lem. You gotta stay here for 3 weeks. Oh no. Oh no. And during that time, he told researchers all the kids came over to see me. I got to know all the kids. Matriarch Rose Kennedy wrote in her biography of Billings that he was one of Jack's surprises. I'll read that again. Rose Kennedy wrote that Lem Billings was one of Jack's surprises.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Shut up, Kevin Bacon. We're talking here. We're talking about a heterosexual relationship between two men. Friends to the end. Lem Billings has really been part of our family since that first time he showed up at our house, and he was so frequent a presence that Ted Kennedy, more than a decade younger than his brother Jack, said that he was 3 years old before it dawned on him that Lem wasn't more than an older brother. Jack made a big difference in my life, Billings said in his oral history for the Kennedy Library, adding that he may have been the reason I never got married. What? Hang on. What? Jack made a big difference in my life, said Lem Billings. He's the reason I never got married, said openly gay man Lem Billings. He remained a close friend with various family members, most notably Robert F. Kennedy Jr. What? Though there was a dark side, with him descended into drug use with connection with his relationship with the young Bobby Kennedy, who had well-documented drug use himself. Oh my God, Lem Billings was shooting smack with RFK while his son was getting his brain eaten by worms. Billings later in life invariably enmeshed himself into the Kennedy clan. And Billings never recovered from the death of his his dear friend, suffering from a deep depression in weeks and months after JFK was assassinated. Quote, in many ways, Lem thought of his life as being over after Jack died, the younger Bobby Kennedy said. Still, he was aware of his proximity to history, and at one point he is said to have remarked, quote, after I go, there will be no more Kennedys. Lem Billings, who's not a Kennedy, said, after I go, there will be no more Kennedys. Wow. Almost like they were married or something. Weird. That spirit. They were just good buddies. Heterosexual BFFs. Right? JFK was ahead of the time. He just accepted Lem Billings for who he worked. A proud kind of semi-openly gay homosexual man. They were just hetero BFFs. And they just did hetero BFF things. Just total bro dude things, like hanging out, cuddling in a hammock together. Total bro dude, hetero things. They were just locking arms and prancing down the beach and kind of wrestling with each other in the snow. Just total things you do with your bros. Total hetero bro things. Lem Billings might have been gay, but JFK was banging Marilyn Monroe. He was banging all them women. He was just hanging out with his hetero bro friend wearing flamboyantly oversized bow ties. Total things you do with your bros. Bro things to do. Flamboyant giant bow ties, hanging out together, just sitting there in preppy clothes with a little puppy. Bro stuff. Totally hetero bro stuff. Like holding hands and dancing and kissing each other on the cheeks. Total hetero bro stuff that you all do with your bros, right? JFK and Lem Billings were just hanging out doing hetero bro stuff, like dancing and holding hands and kissing and doing whatever this is. Just total hetero bro stuff. Whatever this is, they were doing it. They were doing it. They were goatseeing before it was a thing. Just hetero BFF bro stuff. It's not like Lem Billings never got over JFK's death and treated him like he was his wife. It was a go-between between him and Jackie. No, Jackie was having an affair with a Secret Service agent. Anyway, we gotten really gay tonight. Really gay. We gotten all up in the gay tonight.
Especially in the homosexual underworld.
Nah, thank you for it. But, hi. I got one question before we wind down this show. I got one question. I hope the stream has opened your eyes. Has the stream opened your eyes? Have you been delivered? Do you see the light? Do you see what's happening? Brothers and sisters, thank you for joining me on this journey. We've been on a long, strange trip with a lot of swishy people. Do you see what's happening? Have you been delivered? Are your eyes open to the light?
Do you believe that the Lord tonight has set you free? Yes, sir. Turn around and tell those people. Tell them. I'm not gay no more. I am delivered. I don't like men no more. I said I like women. Women. I said women. I'm not gay. I would not date a man. I would not carry a purse. I would not put on makeup. I will love a woman. Now listen, y'all praise God with him. Hold on, wait a minute. Somebody believe God with him. Hey!
Hallelujah!
We don't just preach condemnation. We preach reconciliation.
We preach reconciliation here. Hallelujah! Have you been delivered?
Hallelujah! God, help him, Lord. Help him, Lord. Help him. I wish I had some shown up believers that'll come down here and dance with him and tell him you can do it in the name of Jesus.
You can do it. Hallelujah. All right. You can do
towards that camera and tell them I got a brand new life. Run right now. Run. Run. Because it's in front of you.
You need to run. Run before it gets too gay. Run. Oh my God, it's getting too gay. You all need to run away. Run from the gay. Thank you all. Wow. What a journey we've been on. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for joining me. Hallelujah. We all been delivered. Now thank you very much for joining me. It's James Campese, he says, stay gold. Until we meet again, thank you very much. Now, hit the road, Jack. And in the pursuit of truth, trust no one. Good night. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go. Home, why you treat me so mean? The meanest old woman that I've ever seen. I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go. That's right, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go. What you say, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go. Oh woman, don't you treat me this way, cause I'll be back on my feet someday. Don't care if you do, cause it's understood. You ain't got no money and you're just no good. I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go. That's right, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, no, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, no, what you say, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, no, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, no more. How about a hand for that trombone man, y'all? How about a hand for that tuba and that drummer, y'all? Don't you go back, go, go, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back, go, go. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. Oh woman, don't treat me this way, 'cause I'll be back on my feet someday. Don't care if you do, 'cause understood. Ain't got no money, ain't just no good. I guess if you say so, I'll drop up my things and go. That's right, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. What you say, hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more. Don't you come back no more.